OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
All right, you're very welcome along. I want to say it's Wednesday morning, the 17th of May. I think it might be. Straight out the bat, things are better than yesterday. Shane is here.
Morning, or things.
Nathan is here.
Hey, Ger.
It's half time. I'm going to quickly run through the newspaper headlines for you this morning. This is a lovely story on the back of Manchester City. Freudian slip. Make some noise. Successful though they are, Walker says City must win Champions League to be compared to neighbours United's great teams of the past. But he also says that he wants to do it for the owner. I'm going to get this exact headline for you here. Where is it? Anyway, one of the tabloids has captured it best.
You said you were starting better yesterday than yesterday, but I think you'll find
I actually tried.
Somewhat shambolic.
Yeah.
Shake a leg.
Wow.
Shake a leg.
Very good.
Let's KO Real and win big prize for the owner, says Kyle. That's what everybody's doing. Plucky underdogs, Manchester City. They need to do it for their gazillionaire owner.
Well, listen,
good guys, yeah.
Has there ever been a more rallying
do it for Abu Dhabi
in the build up to a massive game against the greatest team in European football history? See, they're really. I know you're all very rich. This guy's really rich. Let's do it for him. Let's make him happy. He deserves it for making us all really rich. And maybe that is actually
the leaders in the dressing room are, Erling Haaland is there. I remember my dad playing for this club and it was nothing, and I want them to grow. I want them to be. This is our destiny. And Kyle's like, see the rich guy who pays all our wages and made us all millionaires. Let's just do it for him.
Look, here's the thing. Maybe footballers are motivated by that, We'll get even richer.
Did he mention the fans? Did he say we want to do it for the fans? No? Or was it just the owner?
I'm sure he mentioned the fans.
Listen, Kyle likes a night out, as we know. And maybe Kyle was out one night and he met the Sheikh, and the Sheikh is like, you boys win the Champions League.
You can have many more nights out.
It's going to be a big bonus.
He's still as fast. There's a graphic in the papers today. Kyle Walker's still as fast now as he ever was. Like literally running the same top speeds that he ever did, which is very impressive. And he would be as fast as close enough to Jesse Owens in a 100-metre race. Not bad.
It's probably why Jesse Owens was going a bit longer. The analysis of the game last week was strange in that the stats said that Vinicius never got round Kyle Walker, yet on watching it, Vinicius ripped him to pieces. So he just never ran. He never out-sprinted him. He just went a different route. But you'd have to expect that tonight City go with something very similar to last week. Just go with maybe the exact same team as last week. And I cannot wait for this one. Last night felt like somebody else's party watching the Milan Derby, where there's just such an obsession with the Premier League and knowing everything about it, where like the demand for the tickets was 10 times greater for the Milan Derbies, and it was just of such importance to everybody in that stadium.
Yeah.
And AC just fell so flat again. They were somewhat better last night, but Inter always had them at arm's length, and it is so strange watching that Inter team. I won't say misfits from the Premier League, because obviously Edin Dzeko was
pretty good,
very good Premier League player. Now you're watching Lautaro Martinez. Lautaro Martinez could end up with World Cup and Champions League, and never has a man stunk to joint out more at the World Cup finals than Lautaro Martinez.
One of 10 people in football history to be able to do that.
I mean,
got the goal last night.
Exclusive club. The keeper should have done better though, Mike Mannion.
Yeah, it looked as though he wasn't expecting him to hit it at the near post.
Yeah.
It was one of those where it sort of dipped because it maybe didn't have quite as much power as you would have thought.
Wasn't ready.
So, O'Rourke blast at Hurling Snobbery. This is Carl O'Kane carrying our story from OTB AM yesterday, where we spoke with Colin O'Rourke. You can get that podcast in the OTB GAA feed. Don Logue's comments have really ignited a massive conversation.
It was such a strange comment to have a needless pop at the Tailteann Cup, when in a lot of ways those Tailteann Cup counties are those hurling counties outside of the top 8.
Okay, everybody's a bit touchy though, aren't they? Everybody's a little bit touchy.
Hurling people.
Well, but the football people are the ones who are touchy in this instance. It's like it is literally the also-rans from the top tier.
I don't think the Gaelic football has the snobbery that hurling has.
Are you sure? Are you sure? Physician, heal thyself. I mean, Oh, Clonus, it's the greatest thing of all time. Clonus.
But football people...
Nothing but Clonus. All Clonus.
No.
Yeah.
Football people love and watch hurling. Like, you'd sit down and absolutely watch an unbelievable hurling match. But would hurling people sit down and watch...
A good football match? I'd say Mayo Kerry, everybody's going to watch it, except Diego. I see what you did there, Shane.
I'd like to watch it, but
you can't afford it. The other big story in the last 12, 14 hours or so is that Roy Gallagher has resigned as Derry football manager in the wake of their Ulster title victory at the weekend. He had originally stepped aside for last Sunday's encounter. This is carried in all the papers today. Gallagher gone is how they reported on the back page of the Mail. On the front page, it's Gallagher resigns as Derry boss after abuse allegations, and it's, as I said, it's carried in all of the newspapers this morning. So we'll wait and see how that story plays out. And then the other one is second legacy. This is Pep, right? City have already made history. Now it's time for the second legacy. Oh, my legacy is secure. I'm already great, says Pep. But like, if he doesn't win a Champions League with Manchester City, with all the money, with the whole situation fixed the way it has been for him, and I mean, like, they got the backroom football directors and all the transfers done in advance of him coming for a couple of years. They built the project basically to his specifications. And if he doesn't win the Champions League, it is a massive letdown. It is a failure. Is it? Or has the football been so good at points you're like, well, what's the point of this?
Yeah, with the resources that they have available, they should be winning a Champions League, but it's obviously a good thing for the sport that they're not always winning every single Champions League, that the little guy Real Madrid still has a chance on a night like this. To be as dominant as they've been in English football for as long as they have been, without winning a Champions League, and the fact that they have collapsed in such calamitous ways through the years, the fact that he goes to a Champions League final and doesn't play Rodri, overthinking it is the most overused word in the papers today. Yeah, I think there would be a massive element of failure, as there is every year they don't win a Premier League title. Like, you're looking at Arsenal this year going, if Manchester City don't win the league with Erling Haaland and the amount of investment that has gone in and the depth that they have, a depth that, like, you look at the weekend again where they're bringing in Foden, Mahrez, Alvarez. Like, I could sit here and make an argument. I think Foden and Mahrez are the two players who should be starting every game, but they're coming in for Jack Grealish and Bernardo Silva, who are probably going to be in the team of the season. Like, if you have that level of depth and talent, absolutely they should be winning a Champions League. Though you can still lose a one-off game.
That's the thing. So but they've
lost them in such ridiculous fashion at times over the last couple of years,
and to such inferior opposition along the way. Like at various stages,
failure may not be losing tonight. Failure will be winning tonight and not winning the final.
Yeah.
His legacy does rest on this, doesn't it? The treble, I think immortality, footballing immortality rests on this.
Look.
That's a Man United centric.
Exactly.
No,
this is the only thing in football that matters.
Like he beat Jose Mourinho's Real Madrid 5-0 while his team played the greatest football we've ever seen.
Yeah, but if he can't win a Champions League with a team with the money that's pumped into it as Man City, like, then surely you have to question.
Yeah, but he might win it next year.
He might win it next year, but I mean, how many more years can Pep go for? He took the year out to learn his German and go off to Bayern. He likes his relaxation as well. Surely he can't just go.
He is still pretty young, right? In terms of football management, he's still relatively young, considering that lots of managers, are way older. Look at Big Sam, still going at 68.
Bit of time off though.
Look at Roy Hodgson.
Does Pep have the constitution of Big Sam?
I'd say Pep's constitution might be a bit better than Big Sam's. Less of the pints of wine. The occasional cigar here and there. A few tipsy appearances on telly. The other thing that's happened over Man United overnight is Manchester United related. The bidding war for Manchester United took an extraordinary twist as Sheikh Jassim bin Hamad Al Thani slapped in a last ditch bid. So this is exactly what you want when you're having an auction. You want somebody just at the last minute to go, I've got it, 8 billion or whatever it is. We don't know the exact numbers, but he did make a final take it or leave it offer 2.5 weeks after the deadline had closed. But these are all fake deadlines anyway.
Yeah, they are, and you do wonder how much of this is a charade that at the end of it they end up selling to Qatar, and that the Glazers, listen, we tried our best. We didn't want to have to do this. We spoke to Jim Ratcliffe. We engaged in the process for as long as we possibly could. We didn't even want to leave in the first place.
But you forced us to.
We had no choice in the end because these guys just came in and made by far and away the best offer. So
you kept disrupting our games. You gave us abuse. All we did was load the club with debt and give all the managers all the money. That's what we did.
It's 100% of the club though the Qataris want, which the Glazers don't want to sell. So
do they?
So would you prefer that Jim Ratcliffe owns 75% and the Glazers keep the other 25%, or Qatar own 100%?
That is Sophie's choice. Like, that is That's pretty difficult.
How is it difficult?
Well, every United fan wants the Glazers out, but United fans with morals don't want Qatari investment because they've given out about other clubs coming in, and they've looked at Man City and Newcastle, the Saudis, and raised eyebrows at it.
Why did the Man United fans not organise to try and buy this themselves? With their like 600 trillion fans around the world. was there nobody with the brain power to be able to do something to create a movement of people?
Well, Ratcliffe's a United fan. He can take it.
Yeah, but he's not gonna like.
No, I know.
I mean, it's like, he's a good chemical guy. Oh, it's great. He's great for the environment. There's no issues here. We have no problems with this.
There's going to be issues with any of these rich people that come in and buy football clubs.
Exactly. Exactly.
But there's different levels of issues.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, are there though? Really, are all issues not just issues? Okay, Milan Derby, Inter's first Champions League final since 2010. I have a pop quiz for you.
Oh.
Nathan.
Oh God.
Football man.
Name the manager, who they played, what was the score, and who scored.
What's the question?
Inter 2010.
Jose Mourinho
Who scored?
for Inter Milan
What was the score?
in the 2010.
I mean, even I know this. But go on.
I don't understand what the questioning is.
Well, give me all the details of the Champions League final in 2010.
Jose Mourinho won in 2010.
Jose
All I
Mourinho.
remember is that they beat Barcelona.
Did he score? did Mourinho score? Okay, Mourinho did not score,
Go
but
on,
they beat
tell me.
Barcelona. Who
Yeah.
scored?
There's a player
Who
scored a
scored the goal?
brace.
Oh, Bayern Munich is the correct answer.
They beat Barcelona in the semi-final, was it? Beat Bayern Munich in the final.
Yes, that was the messy one, wasn't it? Over 2 legs.
Yeah.
Diego
Mourinho sliding, I'm being told.
Milito
Milito with the goal.
scored both goals.
What? How many?
2-0, yeah.
2. There you go. Good man.
All right.
Wow.
Is that right, yeah?
Yeah, apparently so. Yeah.
Take that.
That was the first Saturday night Champions League final,
Yeah.
2010.
It was a good move.
Yeah, it was a
Makes
good move.
sense.
It's a good move.
Just 13 years ago.
A little bit concerned about the political situation in Turkey at the moment. The elections last weekend. Never paid as much attention to an election in Turkey. The nuances of it and whether or not we're going to have a runoff. The runoff will be in 13 days, I think.
Well, it's always concerning when UEFA put out a statement going, we're not concerned about this.
Yeah.
Last year's final went really well, so what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah. Istanbul, great city. Looking forward to going. Bit concerned now that it might
You
not
going?
happen there. I am going, yeah.
Why do you think he's talking about it in such a way?
Wow, right.
Right.
You were there for the flares and or the badness in Paris, so you've experienced some
Well, was he?
hostility.
Was he? Yeah, I think he was in a different part.
I wasn't. I was strolling through and getting tear gassed.
Right?
Oh yeah. I wasn't prawn sandwiching it.
Okay.
No.
down with
I believe
the normal people.
Oh wow, shots fired out of nowhere.
Did he just assume that, yeah?
He did, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, if anybody has any prawn sandwich tickets, I would happily take them.
Yeah, absolutely.
I am actually still on the hunt for tickets, but if anybody, I don't like to use the platform that we have here the way everybody else seems to do that from time to
Well,
time.
go on ahead, do it.
Michael says United fans with morals had to give up that battle 20 years ago. It is what it is at this stage. Football is globalised now, so it tracks the capital to reflect that. Pat Dorgan says, as a Man United fan this morning, I for one welcome our new oil overlords and hope Bruno takes note of Kyle Walker's battle cry for next year. If they still have the opportunity to be making battle cries in the middle of May.
Well, sorry, the Man United friend group that I have, there's probably like 8 or 9 United fans, and they're all split down the middle. Come on, bring in the oil money, don't care, have no morals, doesn't matter, as long as it's money. And then the rest of them are like, no, we can't. I mean, this is... So I think United supporters very much split in the middle.
I'm glad that some of them feel that way, because that's progress, I think, from how most football fans have felt in the past. World Cup winners medal and a Champions League runners-up medal for Martinez in the space of 6 months. Impressive, says Phil Gerrard, who I think might be our lone Man City fan. Luton Town in the playoff final 9 years ago. They were in the Conference League, says James Linsky. Somebody else done a piece on Brighton, nearly gone out of business in 99 or 2000, 2002. And there was a petition that a lot of people signed and brought to Downing Street, and they just stayed in the league. So I'm thinking about that, and I'm thinking about Wrexham going, it's not beyond the bounds possibility that Wrexham are a Premier League club in 10 years.
No, absolutely. Move slowly up the ranks, spend more money than everybody else. Like, it's not this great underdog story. Their wage budget is far greater.
It doesn't have to be that slowly either.
Their owners have plenty of connections, I'm sure, who can bring further investment into the club. If you're a rich American, again, you're going, well, this is the fifth most famous team in America right now.
So Manchester City have just bought another club in Brazil. Is it 12 or 14 or whatever number of clubs they own around the world? Aston Villa are buying one Egypt and somewhere else, and they're launching that model. I mean, it was Holland maybe. Like, if you're one of those super clubs and you're looking at getting a bit of publicity for one of your star 17 or 18-year-olds, you would think long and hard about saying, yeah, we will send them to Wrexham, no problems, because they're going to be very famous at the end of that. And so you can easily get... So one of the players who isn't going to make it, who you think is going to be like, they're not going to make it to Man City, but they might make it to our American team or our Australian team and have a really good career there. Stick them in Wrexham as an 18-year-old. They could be good enough to play. Get sales go up the next season for mid-tier team. There's loads of ways that they can get good players for not very much.
Yeah, that's what Luton. Their loan players were very important to getting them promoted. Obviously, from the 4th tier. Do you want to be sticking 18-year-olds down into 4th tier? May not suit them, but yeah, there's definitely a model for Wrexham to progress very quickly. Tonight it's Middlesbrough against Coventry. Middlesbrough obviously well used to being in the Premier League, but a Coventry-Luton playoff final. Like, there's no team that sums up more pre-Premier League era than Luton.
Yeah.
Relegated the summer it starts. Mick Harford in the stand last night, still looking exactly as he looked 30 years ago.
Wow.
And I don't know if you saw the end of the game where Sunderland are... It's funny, most of the Sunderland fans seem quite calm about the fact that they didn't win and they're not getting promoted, that maybe it's a little bit too early for them, that for once the club is
on the
progressing in a proper manner, and give it time, and next year maybe they'll be back. But they're pushing for an equaliser, and the keeper goes up. They think the ball's going out of play. The keeper stays up. Ball doesn't go out of play. They've got a 3-on-1 break with no goalkeeper, and your man puts it wide.
He butchered it.
Oh, I've never wanted the team to come up the other end and score more than Sunderland.
He'd have been killed.
But Luton, capacity about 11,000. Obviously, everyone's shown the photos of the entrance to the ground. This could be a Premier League ground. It's not that dissimilar to Loftus Road, Queen's Park Rangers ground, who were in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Very, very tight. The camera angle is right over the dugout. Like Bournemouth have 12,000. They'll be all right.
Yeah, they'll be fine. Is it just on the basis of loan players?
No. They've obviously got a good manager, Dave Edwards, who was former Wolves players in there.
Rob Edwards, isn't it?
Rob Edwards. So yeah, there's obviously a quality, and we probably look at promoted sides differently now over the last couple of years. They generally they're going to go straight down. Like most of them come up, have a good game plan, well organised,
and then
get a season.
And then it's dependent on the level of investment they get in.
It was 2011 or 12. They were in the non-league. Like, they have some rise, and even when Nathan Jones left last year, you're thinking this team's going down. Like they're going one way, but Jesus. What Rob Edwards has done is outrageous.
All right, we do need to talk about Rory McIlroy, who is also in the papers today for saying nothing, Nathan.
Yeah, most unusual. Some of us have been calling for this for years and now are massively regretting saying such things, that maybe the best thing for Rory is to just not give the most interesting press conference in sport every single week and just keep the head down. And now that he's done it for one press conference, it's like, how are we going to fill the full 2 hours of Golf Weekly this evening?
2 hours. Gotta create value for money. Can I just say I think you're completely wrong?
With what?
Calling for him to say nothing. Do you not understand that, like, one of the biggest trends in all of corporate world is like, what's our why? Why are we doing this? What's Rory McIlroy's why? It wasn't to be rich. It wasn't to be like the best golfer in the world, because he'd done all that. After you climb the mountain, are there no more mountains to climb? But all of a sudden he had purpose, and his game reflected this. Him being the leader of like modern golf, sloughing off the weight of Tiger on his shoulders and actually becoming a peer of Tiger's, was really good for his game. Okay, so he had a period where he was, again, the best golfer in the world on the back of being forceful and aggressive and telling everybody, hang on a second, this is absolute nonsense. This is just sports washing. Those guys are just going for the money, and they keep telling you they're going to try and grow the game. That's all bullshit. And he called bullshit on something that the whole world was like, are we allowed to say this? Will the golfers sue us if we say this? Like Patrick Reed with his lawsuits. But Roy was just called it all, led the world, faced it down, forced the two tours to come together, and improved the lot of basically every player on the tour, and responded by playing really good golf. And now I think he's going to go back into his shell and retreat and just be Rory for Rory's sake, and
he
that doesn't suit him.
He's never been in his shell. So what you're talking about is the last 18 months. Rory, for his entire career, has been the most interesting person in golf because he has an opinion on every part of the game and has never been afraid to change his opinion from, when he was a kid, saying that the Ryder Cup was sort of pointless, to this being everything that he wants in his career. So this was his press conference yesterday where he basically decided, I'm not talking about Live anymore. He was asked a question about where the professional game will be in 3 years' time. He said, I don't have a crystal ball. Do you want to speculate? No. Which, for McIlroy, that's usually 10 minutes later. He's still speculating on exactly what would happen. Asked to follow up, pretty much ignored it as well. And there's no doubt he is hurting and is really taking stock after what happened at the Masters. And I do wonder as well if the high of what you're saying, unquestionably he was invigorated by being the leader of that tour and taking the fight, and as Paul McGinney would always say, elbows out, which is when McIlroy is quite often at his best. When you go back to his last major win, the PGA, the darkness is descending and Phil Mickelson and Ricky Fowler are standing on the 18th tee and you're thinking, are they going to get finished? And McIlroy just hits the ball over their heads on the 18th tee so they can get finished. Like, I do whatever the hell I want. I'm Rory McIlroy. I just wonder if now that things are almost settling a little bit with Liv and nobody is thanking him for what he's done. Like, the other professional golfers aren't going, Rory, thanks for getting us all this money.
But we
all
know.
They're doing is bitching and moaning.
We all know that he did, though.
But we all know that. And
they all know that.
Yeah, but all they're looking at is, we're playing way more tournaments now. We're having to turn up at these events. We don't want to. And you don't even bother turning up to them yourself.
Mental health issues, Nathan.
He didn't say there were mental health issues.
He
said he was tired.
No, he said it was mental health. He said, for my own mental health, I had to do that.
Yeah, but lots of players have. He's the one who set this in stone.
Yeah, but
he's on the Netflix doc saying, players need to realise, in sport you can't just rock up whenever you want. So I do wonder what life on tour is like for him. I don't think he has, 50 professional golfers thanking Rory for making them twice the amount of money last year. I think a lot of them have looked at all of this and gone, why are you the self-appointed leader of the tour?
Well, he was.
Well, he was. And it was strange
worked.
that I've always found it strange. Is he the head of the player advisory committee? And even that was always a weird thing for a Rory McIlroy. Like, that's a journeyman job. But Rory, he wants to be involved in that side of the game. He
likes the admin and the politics, doesn't he?
And that all suited him.
Probably became a bit too much.
Did it, though? Like, that's not why he failed at the Masters. He failed at the Masters because he's got in his own head.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, his comments on the Masters. He said, I was never so sure I was going to have a great week at Augusta. Never. And then that happened. It was a great lesson for me. I shot 5 under on the back nine on the Wednesday afternoon. Felt great. Had a chat with Bob Bertella the night before. I feel so good. How can I not get ahead of myself? Now, I don't know if Bob Bertella is going to be putting that on the back of his book, that Rory McIlroy has never felt so good. And then I spoke to Bob and I stunk the joint out. So he says he's trying to lower expectations, which I definitely think is a good thing. I don't know if this is the way of not really being yourself, because you'd have to assume what we've seen over the last 5 or 6 years is him standing in front of the world and being comfortable.
Exactly.
So be that guy.
Exactly.
I think if he's trying to hold it all in,
let Rory be Rory.
Maybe he's going to try and do it for one tournament and see if it works, where there's nothing to really talk about ahead of this, except the fact that there's nothing to talk about.
Would you care to speculate? I would care to speculate that he's going to have a bad few weeks. He'll be quiet, and then in 4 weeks' time, he'll be sitting down at the week before the Open and the week of the Open saying, I've decided to go back to being myself again, having an opinion on everything. Have at it, lads. Ask me anything, I'll tell you. And there's an hour-long press conference, and he comes out and shoots the lights out.
Quite possibly. And we just don't know what's going inside the clubhouse as to how awkward this Liv split is. Again,
it doesn't seem very awkward at all, does it?
Publicly, it is not. But like, Phil Mickelson is still on Twitter every day bashing everybody he possibly can, and then they're having a champions photo last night, and Phil is there in the middle of it, and Rory's there, and you're kind of wondering what's been said. Like, there's definitely a shift in attitude towards live golfers around the game in America. Like, they are not as welcome in all the places they were once welcome.
Oh, I thought it had eased.
No,
it's
still
okay.
It's still as it was.
So the beef is still semi-real.
Exactly. I suspect it's just not as publicly real. And if you're Phil and you've sat down to watch the Netflix doc and you're looking at maybe the only interesting piece in the entire thing where Rory's going, F you, Phil. I mean, are you going to let that... Like, Phil doesn't let things rest.
No, but, I'd say Rory needs to get back out and defend himself and go a bit more F you, Phil, as opposed to, I've got nothing to say about this. If you come out in the press conference and say F you, Phil, then you get the juices going. That's what I'm saying. He needs to get the juices going. You surely don't think that the right course of action now?
Absolutely not. I think he feels that there was too much juice flowing heading into Augusta.
Hard to control the flow of juice.
Yeah,
that there was 6 months of nothing but juice. So actually,
but he was playing really well at that stage.
He played well until probably January.
Yeah.
But again,
Take
at
a break or
period
something.
of the year, well, he started messing around with his
New drivers
equipment,
and stuff.
putter, all of that. Said he ain't going to be doing any of that for the rest of the year. He's quite happy with where everything is.
Right.
Again, the other interesting part of what Rory did say was that he's been chatting a lot with Tiger. Tiger's been watching his game, saw some things,
Right.
called him up, spent some time.
Didn't happen
Here's where you're
before.
going
And
wrong.
yeah.
Yes.
But it worked out the last time.
Like, this is the way Rory spoke is almost like every other golfer speaks ahead of a tournament. I'm finding a little thing here, and somebody gave me this little bit of
Yeah.
advice.
1%ers, yeah.
But they're not. It's not. It's like in your head. That's what that is.
Yeah.
No, Nigel Gallagher says, I reject the narrative sports people can't speak up on important issues for fear of it affecting their game. Some of the most outstanding sports people in history stood up for things they believed in. John Max says, I want to see Ger and Crystal Maze. I had 2 channels going up.
I thought it was going to be
Crystal
I want
Meth.
to see him Crystal Meth in Istanbul on the night of the Champions League final. Well, if you end up in the right spot, why does he want to see you on the Crystal Maze?
I don't know.
I just love the Crystal Maze.
Okay, so you know what it is. I mean,
Describe it to us there.
you're the only one here.
Crystal Maze was a TV game show. You know those escape rooms that are everywhere?
Yeah.
So it was basically a TV version of that. Richard, give me his surname.
Bacon? Dawkins?
Looked like it could be in Right Said Fred.
Richard Dawkins.
Right.
Was the
Richard
presenter.
Ayoade.
Not Richard Ayoade. This is Crystal Maze is a 90s TV show. He might have done the reboot.
Oh, he did
2
the
channels.
reboot, yeah.
So it was basically a test of skill in each place. Richard O'Brien, and you had to try and progress on. And then at the end, they had a giant bubble full of cash.
Oh, I know, you win.
And then they used blow it up into the air, and you
Yeah.
had to catch as much as you possibly could, and you got
Classic.
to go home with it all. Like the dream,
That's a
the
little
dream
bit,
for any young lad in Mayo back in the day was,
Bags of cash.
after winning the All Ireland, getting on that.
Bags of
Okay,
cash and Ballyhonus, yeah.
Question for Shane. Who's the defending PGA champ?
Why is this a question for me? Is it because I got Melito and so all of a sudden I have to answer everything? Because Nathan will know. Is it...
The first rule of production, I'm going to say, is you never start doing a pop quiz on air.
Well, this is deliberately...
it's not Morikawa, is it?
This is deliberately designed to humiliate and
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
show
yeah.
up.
Send us down. Who is it, Nathan? Champ.
Thomas,
Just having some fun,
Champ.
Justin Thomas.
says our producer this morning.
Well, you could argue Phil Mickelson wasn't
earlier
there
on,
last year,
the
so,
message coming through was, last night's episode of Succession is great. And I'm like, okay, be in the moment. But you can't be in the moment when you're completely just addicted.
It was very good.
It's like a full-blown addiction that our column has at the moment. You'd be in the middle of a production meeting and he goes, season 3, episode 4, 20 minutes in. We're like, looking at them.
Yeah, we watched that last year. It's gone.
Right, 7:57, OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave of your money back. Neon 9th edition is available now. Mayo Kerry this weekend. What's going to happen?
Been a while, Nathan, since Mayo played.
Is the
Does
faith
it really matter?
Is the faith wavering?
Absolutely not.
It's gonna be
I
an
think you'll find that the last national title that was available to be won was won by Mayo.
Yeah.
So let's just keep that
Mayo
front
and Limerick,
centre.
things are going great for them, aren't they?
There's like this round robin, no do or die. Does it really suit Mayo?
Zero jeopardy.
Exactly. Like the only, if you're Kevin McStay and you've lost to Roscommon and next thing you're coming in and you end up losing to Kerry, all that sort of momentum and good feeling there's only so much you can fake it. But again, you win your last 2 games, you win a preliminary quarter final.
Mayo need to feel alive.
You're back
in Croke Park, and then sure, we know.
I think
it.
Kevin
you watch
McStay
it?
realises that.
Did you watch it live, Nathan? You get...
I'll find somewhere to watch
Get
it.
the wallet out now.
I'm not, but again, I'm not paying my 12 quid.
12 quid a game is not cheap.
No.
Right, good to go. It is, as I said, 7:58. We have James Tracy standing by. We're going to talk to Beibhinn Parsons live from our post her qualification for the Olympics. We've got John Duggan's preview of the PGA. Séamus Hickey is going to talk to us about the Limerick Hurlers, and Dennis Hogan is going to join us in studio. He's part of the Katie Taylor undercard this weekend. But quick break, and James Tracy talking Heineken Champions Cup final next.
OTB AM.
The Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball. Off the Ball Daily.
I might create a new game. I looked at maybe creating a game that just has 4 pockets on it. I looked at a table, we started playing it. I went, you know what, I like this. It's a cross between pool and snooker.
And you could win the first World Championship on this 6x6 table.
Yeah, I'd win it, and yeah, probably.
Ronnie O'Sullivan, inventor. Just to add to it.
Inventor, yeah.
Subscribe to the Off the Ball Daily podcast feed right now.
OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
Right, it's nearly 8 o'clock. I'm glad to say James Tracy is with us. James, good morning to you. How are you?
Yeah, great. Excited.
How was your phone after Ron Nagara went on OTB AM last Friday?
Yeah, not too bad. I was in a different time zone, so
very good. You had to wake up to it.
Yeah, it was nice. Yeah, it was good.
You're a plant, apparently.
Yeah, a few conspiracy theories going around. He loves a conspiracy theory himself, so it's fair enough. Listen.
I guess like you still feel part of the setup, but like you haven't. You're not a full civilian just yet.
Well. Yeah,
you are.
Yeah. I'm still massively attached to the group, but like last time I was in there, it was the day I retired in December. But yeah, like I've grown up with a lot of that group, so I definitely feel like a massive part of it. But he was never going to take anything well. But all of my comments come from my video analysis, so it's not like I'm making it up.
No one's sending you messages here. Get this out. We need to talk about this. Come here. That bit before we get on to the actual analysis of the game. Like watching last weekend's game and watching next weekend's game. Are these the most difficult ones for you to watch as a recent retiree, or are you actually fully just happy to go and immerse yourself in the experience?
Certain parts of it, yeah. You miss the big moments in games. Like the lead up can oftentimes be like miserable in terms of you're crushing yourself with self-doubt and the emotional waves and different things like that. But the big moments in games, I think there's not many things that can top that feeling. So definitely miss those.
How far out from the game do the emotional waves start? Is it early in the week, or is it actually on the day of the game?
Usually even though the game leading into it, so that kind of distracts you a little bit, yeah. So it'll be early on in the week, in the build up, yeah.
Jesus, that's kind of exhausting.
Yeah, it is, but it's part of it all. It's, and it means something to you, so that's why. And if it didn't, you'd be a bit of a serial killer.
Were you one of the players that needed the nerves, or did you like the nerves to stay away for as long as possible?
To be honest, I tried not to pay too much heed to it. Like, I wouldn't even look at the weather because I just wanted to control, my week, I can control there, and not worry about it, all the external factors and everything like that. But I wouldn't say I relished it or I shone away from it, but it was just part of my journey anyway.
Is there a full-time sports psychologist that you guys worked with, or did you deal with anybody would you talk about this stuff, or was it certainly just a personal thing, or stuff that you do with your teammates and go, oh, I'm feeling it now?
Yeah, we've had a number of brilliant ones over the years, and they kind of give you principles to work on, and like mindfulness was a big part of the week, and to be honest, it's like anything. It's like if you're prepared, that gives you the most confidence. So like the old saying, like fail to prepare to fail. It's like that's what gives you confidence. It's like knowing that you've everything nailed down, and like everything else is kind of out of your control.
You're doing an exam at the weekend. If you've done as much research and study as you can, you're going to give yourself the best opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's weird in rugby in that you can actually do loads of stuff in video that you don't feel like you have to kill yourself the week of the game. If physically you're up to it, you can actually. The more video you watch, it seems like the better you're going to feel prepared. Maybe some people might be, I've got too much information now as well.
Well, like one thing that I found watching games, so like humans in general, we all like follow patterns, and we like kind of getting into our routines of doing things. And funnily enough, it would penny drop for me at one point in my career of like, if you watch enough video of teams, they tend to do similar things in similar areas of the field and on similar sides of the field. So, and people stand in the same areas when they're doing certain plays, and they stand a certain way. And that was kind of a moment for me of you're not going to be right all the time.
Yeah.
But even if you have a hint of an idea of what might happen, you're still ahead of what you would have been if you're just reacting. So that's what I would have looked out for, a lot of kind of like shapes of where people are standing, the body language, stuff like that. It's not as in depth as you think. Like people, when you're looking for the right thing, it's actually quite obvious. Because they're not trying to hide it. Like they've never needed to hide it.
Yeah.
So I've always found that you might only get 30% of it right, but it's 30% more than you would have known if you hadn't watched all that video, and it just gives you a bit of an idea of what's going to happen.
And are you specifically talking here about defending line-outs and set pieces and kind of just watching, so if a certain line-out, if scrum half is looking or has like two looks to the left, then they're going to go down the blind side? And there's a Boris Becker, Andre Agassi story, but in American football there's sometimes one of the down linemen will have two hands in the dirt and they're not going to rush the passer, and if he only has one, they're going to rush the passer, and the whole league knows this, but they don't tell each other, and so they keep defending against it. It sounds a little bit like that kind of. That's what you're getting to with this.
Yeah, and it could be where people are standing in the field. So sometimes, like the backs, if the forwards, it's going to be a maul. All of a sudden, they're not as interested.
Right.
Where a winger thinks he doesn't have an impact, but he's giving me a read on what might be coming next, or he looks a bit. He might be standing in between the 15s where the line-out's happening, and again, that could be a cue for me that this is going to be like a maul to a kick or something like that, and little things like that, or in the line-out, people can look disinterested. And be good at hiding when they're going to be lifting or part of a play, or sometimes it's quite obvious that they're really bad at selling dummies forward, and they're always going to be coming back. So you're trying to cue people up on stuff you might have noticed. There's some better actors out there than others.
The mind games and media hype in the build-up. Do players pay any attention to that? Is it dependent on the individual, or do you completely ignore it?
No. I would have consumed all my media going up through my parents of what they'd heard, and they're like, "Did you?" And every time I'm like, "No, I don't."
Well,
but everyone, and so that's kind of how everyone gets it, either through a pal or through a parent.
Yeah, is your experience of the parents? They think they're doing good, but they're like, "Did you see that terrible thing somebody said about you?" I'm like, I deliberately didn't.
Yeah.
Now I did.
Yeah. But that was how the lads would be the same. Like we ingest enough rugby during the week that you don't go looking for extra bits. While like me on the outside now, I'd read a lot more media and consume a lot more media because that's kind of my outlet for it. At the same time, but yeah, it was parents and friends who would have given it to me the whole way through.
Does any of it matter? Does any of the outside stuff come in? Like, 'cause you're like, you have to be incredibly motivated to reach this stage of your life, and so the whole notion that somehow one tiny bit of motivation is going to give you that extra 1% always seems a little bit weird. And then you watch Michael Jordan, and you're like, okay, some people do really feast off the negativity, and most people are kind of somewhere in between. So, was there ever external motivation for a team that you played on that had come from a source outside, like somebody said something? Like McFarlane talking about the demographics a couple of weeks ago. Does that get mentioned at any point? Going, they think we're just good because we're big, but we're not. Do people talk about this in any way?
It would be if you're finding it. You really want to find it like a different spark for a different reason, or like it would want to be something outrageous and half true, I suppose, for you to buy into it. But
right.
Like again, it would always come from an external factor. Maybe it'll come from the top down with a certain comment that a coach has said or something. But like our week wouldn't be built around it. It'd just be thrown in maybe to stoke the fire a tiny bit, but definitely wouldn't be around the game plan of they think they're this, we think they're that. It'd be a lot more logical on the game plan, and then, as I said, like you're trying to stoke the fire a tiny bit with maybe a few things, but we all have our own way of geeing ourselves up. And as I said, like I found my own way through competition and different sides of it like that. I never had to be riled up too much because I always had it internally.
Yeah. Since Leinster won the Champions Cup in Bilbao, there's been heartbreaking semi-final and final defeats, always against like the best team in the competition. So they've been the second best team in the competition most years, or close enough to it. The opportunity for them now is to like retrospectively cap this as an incredible era, which starts with one win and finishes with the second one, and obviously whatever happens next year happens when Lancaster's gone. But there's a lot riding on this. Like retrospectively, it justifies all the building and the heartbreak. And if they lose, then those last few years, the heartbreak is actually magnified more, I would say, in a way. There's no kind of, that was our building block to get to this point and it all makes sense now. None of it makes sense. It's just all heartbreak.
Yeah, it's so hard to win. I wish you could like quantify how difficult it is to win a European Cup, and you need like to be on like the top of your game for like the most important part of the year. You need to be on the top of your game. You need a slight bit of luck on your way in terms of injuries and stuff like that. You need your best players to be peaking at the right time of the year, and also it's like the bounce of the ball sometimes. Like I spoke about the Doolan missed drop goal in last year's final, and like the ball comes back into the field about 15, like it's about that short of going dead, and all of a sudden you're easily clearing it, and it comes back into Johnny, and it's good kick pressure, gives it to Hugo, they get turnover, kick to the corner, score a try, and you're like, off of nothing, you know what I mean? Off of like a shot to nothing drop goal, and a game can swing on that, and like you can do all the prep, you can do all the things you want, but like sometimes it just comes down to those razor sharp moments of like just losing that moment, and you could have been great all year, and like that goes both ways. But the thing is, it's like there's no shame in losing to La Rochelle. There's no shame in losing to that Saracens team we lost to. They're an exceptional team, but it hurts so much, and that's why it means so much more. Yeah. That's why you put a star in the jersey, because it's not something that you can just go and do just because you want it. It's like it's incredibly hard journey to go through.
Will Roger have been a tad displeased with the result last weekend? Is it the case of Munster poking the Leinster bear in some ways?
I would say he's pleased from his Munster point of view, but I wouldn't say he would have cared really. Like he would have probably preferred Munster to win from a selfish point of view of his attachment to the club. But I listened to they're two different games. Week on week, it's two different games.
Keith Wood was on us yesterday, and he was talking about the Leinster selection. You were surprised at the Leinster selection? Like, were you surprised at all with the team that Leo Cullen put out?
No, we spoke about it a little bit last week. I thought consistency would have played a factor in terms of that selection, and I would have done the same thing, to be honest. So it's easy to say when you lose, everything was wrong, but if you win, all of a sudden, you're a tactical genius. But like I thought, in fair dues to Munster, like. There was a few huge moments, and I think like no more than that, like Mike Haley chase back. That's what wins you like big knockout games. Is those no talent moments as well as nailing all the basics. And I think there's a few harsh lessons for some of those young Leinster guys at the end of just missing a few moments and making mistakes when it really mattered. But at the same time, Byrne came up with a few huge moments. Coombs came up with a few huge moments, and that Mike Haley chase back. It's something special. I don't know if did you watch it back? Where
I haven't seen that bit back. No.
So ball breaks. Harry Byrne kicks it long, and Tommy O'Brien just takes off, and there's no Munster backfield, and he just zooms past Tyg Byrne and Scannell, I think, and it's just a certain try. Like the ball even just tees up for him right at the line, and Haley had corner flagged from the other side of the field. Just sprinted with everything he had, and just kind of like made contact. We were both going for the ball, but like did enough to put Tommy off for a certain try. And at that point, it would have meant it was a 2-score game in Leinster's favour if they'd gotten that, and it would have been a big turning point. But anyway, Haley wins that moment, and like that's the sort of thing you need to do in big games, and just come up and for your mates and win those kind of no talent moments.
Does it have an impact on how training feels this week, or does everybody? Lancaster was talking sumo, I think, in his Monday press briefing. I thought sumo didn't happen until Tuesday normally, but is it straight away on the Monday? That's parked, and it's a different team this week, and it is a different team because Ryan comes in and Caelan Doris comes in and the front row comes in, and they're all genuinely world class at the moment. If you're picking a world 15, most of them are getting at least consideration, if not straight into the team. So does the result matter in any way? Is there a hangover from it?
Everyone will be hurt. I think you can't not watch. Like at the end of the day, you're a band of brothers in there, and when you lose, you all lose, and that includes the backroom staff. Everyone's so invested. So I think it'd be shying away from it saying that the group won't be hurt and pissed off. And that's just the nature of sport. It's just got to dust yourself off and go again, but try use it in a positive way. But yeah, they'll definitely be hurt.
What elements of that Leinster performance would they be most hurt by?
Just how they managed the last maybe 20 minutes. Like they were in the game. Like the thing is, like it was a very good game. It was a class fixture, and I think you look at we were picking and going with about maybe 10 minutes to go, and Byrne comes up with a big steal about 3 metres out from the line when Keaney was over the ball. Moments like that where when you're in the attack, the percentage are massively in your favour. So it's understanding that and not making any mistakes and just eking out the defence, because it's so hard to defend in that situation when you're on your own try line.
Line's going to break.
Yeah, but someone's going to break. But it's also so easy to go offside. It's a lot of the time you're defending it like 2-on-1 when with like those short picks. It's like it's very very tough to defend. So it's understanding that perspective when you're in the attacking it and just making sure you're calm and composed, and then also there was a couple of kind of silly like knock-ons and stuff, just little moments where
the error of the kickoff is kind of crucial at the end as well, where you end up thinking you're going to get the ball back hopefully, and it's a scrum to them, and then they just kill the game. Let's talk about La Rochelle, right? What do Leinster need to do differently this year than they did last year? Because like, notwithstanding the end of the game, they were in front for a large portion of the game, so it's not that different really.
No, I think they played really well for the majority of last year's final, and I think more of the same. Maybe tidying up, like as I said, there's going to be a lot of pressure. They're going to be in the back of the tackle quite a lot as well. They're clever at doing that, where the tackler will make his tackle and he'll just be a little bit slow to roll out of there. And as when you're trying to clear out these guys who are in so fast, Bhatia, Bugreed, etc., it impacts your entry into the ruck, that guy on the ground, and they know what they're doing there as well. Like it's a fairly common thing in rugby to be clever at it if you can get away with it. So it's understanding that's coming and been extremely effective at doing it. Their maul at times was brilliant. They did a great play up the front in the first half. Skelton did a good job of blocking Tyke Furlong into the maul, and they went up the 5 metre line with Aldred and Bugarit. So like little subtleties, if we can stop those sort of little plays at source, and if we can stop their maul getting momentum into the game, I think we'll have a great chance. We scored really well. We didn't score well enough in the 22 last year. We played the territory game really well, but we probably could have executed a tiny bit better. So just winning one or two more of those moments and containing them, containing their maul, I think will be a really good chance.
What are your concerns about this game? Like, what are the bits that you're like, oh, just a little bit, this La Rochelle team, they're good here, and here. What are the bits that when you're thinking about that, you're like, okay, we have to stop them here, apart from the
reigning champs, so like they have a lot to be concerned about. But you look at their pack, obviously, and Grudge touched on, like, how do you stop the power? And like that comes from a fair point of, like, you have these like men who are absolute giants of men. So obviously that is going to be a massive challenge for the lads, but like it's nothing they haven't played against before on the international stage and stuff like that. So but it's dealing with that, and when those sorts of players get momentum in games, it can unravel fairly quickly, because they're very skillful as well as being like big men getting their nose through the line. But I think for Leinster it's controlling the pace of the game. Hopefully that the ball and play time will be high and they won't be kind of taking injuries and little things like that to give themselves a breather. But let's hope the balls in play, we're going to see a class game, and it's a real kind of slugfest.
Looking back on last year's final, it was all points from the boot, which was, I mean, it's just the nature of a final. We've seen incredible teams reach a final, and the suffocation of the pressure that's involved, and also the fact that you're playing the other best team in the tournament. You know, that's the other bit. It's like, oh, they didn't score any tries. Well, yeah, because La Rochelle are pretty brilliant. So, how do you not be suffocated by the fact that this other team is great, and also it's the final, and so much is riding on it, and they've put so much into the fifth star narrative? How do they just go out and play as loose and free as they possibly can?
Jeez, if I knew that, I'd be rich man if I could sell that. You go into a final, there's always, because it means so much to both sides as well. It's, it's so hard to get away from that side of it. I think both teams will want to score tries and when I say that, I don't mean obviously everyone wants to score tries, but I mean when they have penalty opportunities, I think both teams you'll see going to the corner more than maybe the final last year, where they understand that the score tally needs to be built up enough that it won't come down to hopefully the last play. They're going to try to give themselves a little bit of wiggle room and also scoreboard pressure. But that's really all the answer I can give you, because
just be a bit more aggressive with the penalties.
A little bit more aggressive when the right time comes.
And sure, look, that's always in the eye of the beholder afterwards. They went to the corner and they scored a try. It was amazing. They went to the corner and they got stopped. The clowns. Why didn't they take the points? And
that's, listen, you live and die by the sword, and the decisions will be made based on statistics. But at the end of the day, it's game feel as well. Is this a moment where we need to go for the throat and put the hammer down that we're here to not let you off with just 3 points if you're going to give away penalties. So I think you'll see them hopefully be a little bit more aggressive with those decisions at the right times, but I also feel like it probably is coming the other way too, just from watching them.
Just looking at last year's teams, so James Lowe's been past fit. We've heard Henshaw is obviously back. Jimmy O'Brien went off at half time last week. I haven't heard any updates. I don't know, do you expect him to be fit or not?
I haven't heard any updates, but I would expect it was probably precautionary.
Okay, and then the only other obvious change it looks like is Sexton, unless maybe there's a doubt about who James Ryan's partner is. It looks like probably Ross Maloney will start, given that I don't know what your instinct is on that, but it's basically going to be the same team except with Ross Byrne in for Johnny Sexton. Sorry, Dan Sheehan starting obviously. I'm excited about as well, for Ross Byrne. What an opportunity to put his stamp down and kind of take the reins for Leinster going forward. It's been his team since Johnny's got that knock. So I'm excited to hopefully he can get the job done and cement his name as one of the Leinster greats going forward. Okay, what are your levels of confidence?
Well, it's looking from I'm obviously biased, but it's going to be a slugfest, and I'd be mildly optimistic rather than confident, because it's too close game, and that's not me sitting on the fence. It's I hope we're going to win.
La Rochelle will become one of the all-time great European teams if they win. So that's what's on offer for them.
But you go through the team sheet, but through both team sheets, proper world class players there. So I just hope that the game is as good a game as maybe that Toulouse game was, as the France game was in the Aviva. That you just love it to be a real.
We won those games.
Well, exactly. But at least it was entertaining, free flowing, and it's not just a kick fest. That's what you hope. So
and then we win at the end.
Exactly. Get a win at the end. That'll really top it off.
Advantage, David, maybe if it's going to be that slugfest, that really close game.
Definitely, it definitely makes a huge difference playing at home, and playing in France is unbelievably difficult because it's such a hostile environment. So having it in the Aviva is
so you'd hope the fans do get there early, make the noise, bring the heat.
And we Leinster over the last few years, I've said it as much as we can, the difference it makes when everyone's there behind you, it's just incredible. And we've tried the connection piece with all the different counties in the province is so huge for us, because you're trying to build going forward, we want a packed RDS, a packed Aviva at every game, and we want people to actually really care, because they know that we care. So please God, I know it's a sellout and everything like that, but please God, the atmosphere lives up to the game, and the game gives them something to shout about.
The first 20 minutes of the atmosphere in the semi-final was sensational. Just when the crowd was getting behind the team, it was like, this feels absolutely massive. And it does it have an impact? Because it's always hard to tell, really, if afterwards the players are just like,
you don't necessarily hear it, but you feel it. That's it. And it's like, when the momentum's going your way, you feel it on the other side as well. When things are going against you, and that, like, just the whole place is just going bananas. It just clouds your thoughts, and it just affects you in a way that it's hard to explain. But when it's behind you, it's like you're on adrenaline, and it's just incredible wave to ride. And you look at some of the say Thomond or like Anfield. Like why it's so hard to play there? It's because the atmosphere is always so hostile and electric. It's hostile against the opposition team, but when the home teams get a bit of momentum, it's like the place is absolutely hopping. And hopefully, the Aviva will be like that on the weekend.
It's as good a rallying cry to finish on as we could possibly hope for. James, best of luck at the weekend. Thanks a million. It's 25 minutes past 8 here on OTB AM. We're live with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition is available now. We've got Ireland 7-star Beibhinn Parsons next. But first, here's Kathleen on last night's show talking with Joe about Aoife Mannion.
Did Aoife Mannion play, by the way?
She did, yeah.
She's pretty much nailed on playing, I would presume, given how well she settled in. Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah. Like, I was over in Marbella for the first game that she played, and
in a dreadful game.
Shining
light, but straight away
it wasn't as bad in the Spanish sun when you were sitting there.
I watched it on a dodgy laptop. Not a dodgy stream. It was on the RT player, doing 5 things at once, and it was painfully bad. But I do remember thinking, oh, quality here.
Oh, the minute she got the ball, it was impressive. Like, because I would have watched a little bit of her in the WSL, but obviously she's been out for so long with injuries. And I remember the first touch she had, she was right beside the goal. The ball went down to her. She had a Chinese player on top of her, and she held the ball, carried it around the Chinese player, and played it out from the back. And I was just like, did anyone else? That is not the Irish way of playing.
She's very assured, and there's like a pace to her passing, and so she looks very good.
It's Cathy McNamee from the Koi Gig pod talking to Joe Malloy on last night's Off the Ball on News Talk. You can get the latest episode of Koi Gig wherever you get your pods now. You can get it in the football stream in the OTB Football Podcast Network as well. Now, I'm delighted to say Beibhinn Parsons is with us, fresh from qualifying for the Olympic Games in Paris. Beibhinn, how does that sound?
Sounds good. I could get used to hearing that, to be honest.
Are you going to get one of the Olympic tattoos that is apparently everybody gets them once you're entitled to? Everybody just has to.
I'll have to get there first, make it to Paris, but if I do, I definitely will. We're already having discussions of where we'd put them and everything, so yeah, it's in the works.
The moment of qualification, what's that actually like? Because this has been a very long process to get to this, and a lot of eggs were put in the basket of qualification for the Olympics. So is it joy, is it relief, is it a mixture of all this? What's it like?
For me, it was just pride. Like, I was just so proud to be a part of this team, because there's been so much hard work gone on for the last 8 years to try qualify. So I was just so proud to be in the right place at the right time and be able to get it over the line. We had all of our families over in France, and it felt like we had home advantage over there, and to, put smiles on their faces, it was just such a proud moment.
Were there nerves before that game against Fiji, Beibhinn? I mean, it was a 10-5 win in the end, but both teams knew exactly what was on the line. Yeah,
absolutely. Like, I think for the lead up, we were all trying to keep our nerves to ourselves and not really discuss. But as soon as the game was over, like, it all came out the woodworks, and none of us had slept. We'd hardly been able to eat. Our resting heart rates were up in the hundreds. So, the nerves were through the roof, but we were all trying to manage it and just get it over the line.
It was a goal that you've had for quite some time. Or you mentioned your family being there, and I think one of your family members maybe reminded you of a goal, a life goal, a sporting goal that you'd written down in school as a kid.
Yeah, in school, just one of those exercises. What is your goals in life? And people put down, be happy or be a millionaire or whatever. But I remember just putting down, I want to go to the Olympics. And at that stage, I didn't know what I'd even be playing. I definitely didn't know it'd be for, rugby sevens, but I just knew I really wanted to go. So it's been a goal for as long as I can remember.
It's a slog, isn't it? You travel around the world and it all comes down to 1 5th, 6th place playoff in the end. So it's like, as you say, an 8-year process, but it's 8 years of slogging to be basically an overnight success in the end. Were there points along the journey where you were thinking, I'm not really sure this is going to happen for us?
With the talent in the dressing room, like, when you're playing with the likes of Amy Lee Murphy-Crowe, Lucy Mulhall, like I could list out the full team. Like when you have that much talent in a dressing room, you know that it's going to happen. Like you just have that, you have to have that self-belief or else it definitely won't happen. So to qualify through the series was, amazing, and we knew we'd get there somehow through Europeans or through the World Repechage, but to get through, plan A is to get through in the World Series, and we did that. So not sure if we fully believed that would happen, but it did. So yeah.
When did you realise that the talent in the dressing room was going to be enough then on the other side of this to have the confidence that actually this is going to happen for us? Because that in a way that's a bit freeing, and I know you've spoken before about the advice your dad gave you to play more like a kid and I guess be more in the moment, and the psychology around that. You can read a lot about that, and you can and kind of understand deeply. But when did you begin to feel like, okay, this is a serious goal, but actually we're going to be able to achieve it?
Well, in recent times, we started off the season so well, and we were on a high. We were getting to semi-finals on a regular basis, and we built up a 16-point lead, from the likes of GB and Fiji, who were our main competition. So we were in a really good place, and then we had, a bit of a dip around Vancouver and then Hong Kong, coming 8th in both of those tournaments. But, the belief was still there and the resilience was there to bounce back. And we did a lot of work with our psychologist, Siobhan, and we came up with this sort of mantra of be buzzing, be present, be together. And that was our whole thing. Like we were just working as like a hive, as bees all together, and we just wanted to be buzzing. That was our theme for Toulouse, and I think it just really showed, and that sort of focus on us and trying to block out what Fiji do or GB or the rest of the competition do, and just focusing on us sort of instilled that belief again that we are good enough. And yeah, we had a bit of a winding road to get there in the end, but we always knew that we could do it.
That work you did with Siobhan sounds so important from a psychological perspective, and I've read that in advance of the game you're kind of telling yourselves we don't need to make this a pressurised event, which sounds like a simple thing to say, but from a team perspective it can I guess force everyone to relax a little bit.
Yeah, like we all, when you're playing in front of your family, usually they're up in the middle of the night watching us because there's so much time difference, but to actually have them there at a sevens tournament, that brings some pressure because you obviously want to perform in front of them. Then there's the pressure of knowing what's at stake. But we just told ourselves, we have 3 shots at this. If it's not through the World Series, we can do it through Europe, or then we can go on to the World Repechage. And we sort of took a deep breath, and our coach, TJ, sort of was like, let's not stress about this. Let's not pressurise it. Go out and chase performance and not results. And then, yeah, it all worked out.
The attention will turn to Paris, maybe not immediately, Beibhinn, but eventually. Like, are there realistic medal expectations, or what's the hope?
Yeah, absolutely. That's like, to go into Olympics and not hope for a medal, I think it's daft. Like, we've so much talent, like I said, and we're such a hard-working group of girls that, we have a full year to prepare, and we definitely want to come home with an Olympic medal.
Will there be I'm sure there's a lot of communication between the sevens team and the 15s team as well off the back of the Six Nations. Did you manage to keep in touch with the Six Nations team at all, or watch any of those games, or how was that experience for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, we're Irish women playing rugby for Ireland, and it's not one versus the other. We're very much together, and we hang out in the HPC together, and we're very much the one group. We're playing different codes, but yeah, I've stayed in touch with all of them. We watch every single one of their games, no matter where it was. I know we watched the France game, the night before our Hong Kong tournament. So, we're there to support each other, and vice versa. They've all been supporting us and celebrating this with us, and we really are the one group.
It was obviously a dreadfully disappointing Six Nations, but I guess the one positive you can take from it is that it is a young team. When you look at the number of caps in comparison to other countries, there's so much inexperience there that campaign can only help.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. Even with us, this has taken 8 years for us to qualify for this Olympics. We've been trying and trying. There's girls that have been knocking on this door for so long, and then, a program just needs to grow and develop, and people need to get more experience, and the girls will have learned so much from the Six Nations, and they're such a hungry group of girls, and it's only up from here.
People have been watching you play rugby, it seems like, for a long time, but they forget that you're still quite young, only 21, nearly 22, is that right?
Yeah, 21.
So there's obviously plenty of time for you to have both a sevens and a 15s career. Which of them do you actually prefer playing in the game itself? Which is the easiest / more crack to play?
This is the $1 million question. I get asked this on the daily. It's like asking to choose your favourite child. They're so different. With sevens, I get to travel the world and play in these really cool events, and we're such a tight-knit group because there's so few of us, and it's a really fast-paced game, so exciting. And then on the other hand, there's 15s where you can play in front of a stadium of people at home, and you can't really replicate either feeling. So I just love playing both, and any chance that you get to play for Ireland is just something that you have to cherish. So I don't mind what code it is, I just love playing both.
Do you hope that maybe after this Olympic cycle is over that there's a way of the sevens qualifying and the Six Nations, for example, not overlapping as much as they do, that maybe World Rugby could look at scheduling to change it so that you can have the best players playing both at different times in the year?
Yeah, like that would be the dream, wouldn't it, that you can play both, and neither would be compromised. That would be amazing. But at the same time, I think there is enough players and enough depth to have two very strong teams in the future. So I think that's something we also have to work towards. But yeah, if that could be a possibility, I'd love that.
Have Ballinasloe ever had any Olympians, Beibhinn? Or are you the first?
Yeah, there's Sive Brazel. She does the modern pentathlon. So yeah, I'm not on my own in that sense.
There aren't many of you though.
No, not yet.
Obviously, the other thing that you have is a college career going on at the same time. How do you manage this?
It's just support, really, and reaching out with your lecturers. And I've been so blessed that DCU have been really just so helpful for me this year. They've really taken on board that it was going to be a very hectic year. We're traveling all over the world, and there's so much at stake. So they really, really helped and guided me through, and it's helped me keep both balls in the air.
I was going to say, do you think it's important to not just have one identity as a professional athlete and actually also at the same time be developing other strands so that if injury happens or whatever, because we talk to athletes all the time who end up having a career cut short through injury and they're not really prepared for what happens next in life. But it seems like rugby, among other sports, has been better than most at actually saying, no, you need to continue to develop as a person and make sure that you're ready for whatever's coming next.
Yeah, I think it's vital, even for your own peace of mind, to have something else going on in the background, to be able to take your mind off rugby or vice versa. And we've been so lucky that everyone in the RFU is very supportive of you doing that, and Rugby Players Ireland have been so good for linking up with colleges and courses and making sure that people are proactive in developing themselves off the pitch as well.
Has it been nice to have the time to unwind, Beibhinn, since he's landed back from Toulouse? Judging by social media, there's been quite a few fun celebrations since you landed in Dublin Airport.
Yeah, we've been celebrating we've been celebrating in style, to be honest, and I'd say they're going to go on for a couple more days. So yeah, just really enjoying and soaking it all in.
Well, listen, enjoy. Congratulations, Beibhinn. Thanks a million for joining us. Cheers.
Thanks so much.
It's Beibhinn Parsons, one of the stars of our sevens team who have qualified for the Olympic Games in Paris in 2024. It's one of the first events, actually, those first few days, the team sports are happening. So fingers crossed we'll all get to watch those games free to air in the Olympics next year. A reminder, OTB AM with Gillette Labs, get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition is available now at 8:40 on the day before the PGA starts. It's time for Virtual Insanity.
You have entered Power Drive. Oh, wow!
John Duggan.
Ger Shane, how are we both doing?
We are very good. How are you?
Well, good, thank you. Have you ever had a more competitive golfing environment than you do right now? Probably not. 156 players and the most deep field of the four majors for this PGA Championship, which starts at Oak Hill in upstate New York tomorrow, as you say, Ger, noon Irish time. And four Irish players in the field: Rory McIlroy, Shane Lowry, Padraig Harrington and Séamus Hickey. Quite a dejected Rory McIlroy almost that appeared at the press conference yesterday. A little bit glum, a little bit down.
Yeah, what do you think of this? Because we had this conversation with Nathan earlier. I'm like, go forth and tell everybody everything you think and be your own. Come on. He's at his best when he's
a flamingo. Yeah, letting himself go. Yeah, I like Rory when he's giving out a bit the lift her. But I think he plays better for it.
On the regular tour he does.
Yeah.
But in the majors,
yeah, of course.
It's been the...
But he wasn't winning majors before the lift.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't. And I just feel maybe he just is fed up of talking exuberantly about everything, which he was doing before the Masters, and maybe he just needs to let his game do the talking. I think that's not a bad thing, to be honest. I just think it needs to be just all about golf for Rory. He's so expressive. The media love him for that. Even back to the time he was ripping his shirt, was in Dubai. He just wears his heart on his sleeve and it's so lovable about him, and he's so candid, and it's just fantastic when you see the anodyne nature of most sports people. But I just do think it just needs to be what we see through the 72 holes this week. And he's actually a member there. His wife Erica's from there up in Rochester. I think he's got Michael Bannon there. Tiger Woods has been helping him out a bit. I think we can talk. I think I'm exhausted talking about Rory McIlroy. Around major championships, so I just love to see him just do it. There's always going to be expectation. I suppose the expectation is dulled by the fact that the players around him are playing so well.
When does the odds of a Rory win lengthen to the point where you're like, I'm back in?
Yeah. Well, not since it was Hoylake when he won in 2014. I remember he was 18-1 that week for the Open Championship, and he's never really been those prices since. Like, he's about 12, 14 at the most this week.
I'm not interested at that price.
No. How can you be interested if you were back in Rory? You see, a lot of the profit that's been made in Rory in the last few years has been on each way, where he's been had a rake of top tens and you get your money back or a small profit on it. But if you're looking to win, you're talking about 9 years by 4. You're talking over 30 majors where you're losing. So I wouldn't be. I mean, I'd love to see him just go out and just win it by 10 shots. But I just look at the competitiveness of the field. Like, you've got John Rahm's won 4 times this year, won the Masters. Scotty Scheffler's playing out of his skin, won the Players' Championship. Last week at the Live Golf, Dustin Johnson beat Cameron Smith in the playoff. And we saw by the Masters with the way Phil Mickelson, Patrick Reed all played.
Golf is golf, it turns out.
It is, yeah, unfortunately, for the villains. We don't like to see the villains win, the goodies and the baddies. But yeah, so I've gone for 4 guys. The good friends that are Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantlay, I'm going to headline Xander Schauffele at 16-1 for 9 each way of our virtual cash. We are a bit down this year, but we're hoping to get it back over the next while. Xander Schauffele is a model of consistency. He's an Olympic champion, so he's won a big event. 23 majors, 10 top 10s. So if you're looking each way, I think that's not a bad thing. Second last time out at the Wells Fargo. 7 PGA Tour wins, 3 wins last season. Hasn't missed a cut all year. His last 5 appearances have yielded results of tied 5th, tied 10th, 4th and 2nd. 4th in strokes gained total, which is the stats, and 5th in approach, which is important at a course like Oak Hill. What's not to like about Xander Schauffele, who's the headline pick? You want to call him Schauffele, show fella, whatever you want to call him, I think he might win this week. I think he's the headliner. Patrick Cantlay, I know I get such stick for picking this guy all the time, but I have been doing this 25 years. I do think I'd like to back myself like Rory McIlroy. I don't need to prove myself to anybody. So the big change with Patrick Cantlay, he's now got Tiger Woods caddy on the bag. He sacked his caddy a few weeks ago and he got Joe LaCava on the back. I think that could be a huge help. Joe LaCava won the Masters with Fred Couples. He was there for Tiger Woods' win at Augusta a few years ago. He was with Woods for 10 years. I think that could be a really big thing for Patrick Cantlay, who does have the all-round game and the temperament, you'd have to think. He's won 8 times on the PGA Tour, including the Memorial Tournament, which is a similar course to Oak Hill. He's also won the Tour Championship. A lot of people don't like his slow pace of play, but if it's a winning bet at 18-1 for €8 each way, you can say that you want to take him until next month to get into their, the hut to get the trophy, the Wanamaker trophy, because it won't matter if he's won. So Patrick Cantlay, in his last 8 tournaments, his worst finish was tied 21st. 5 top 5s this season. Driving the ball very well. You need to do that at Oak Hill because there's a lot of tight fairways and strong rough. 3rd in strokes gained off the tee. And I do think he actually has the bottle. He just doesn't have enough reps. But his last couple of major tournaments, he's actually played quite well. Ricky Fowler is going to be the comeback hit of golf, folks, at 60-1 for 5 each way. 103rd in the world at the end of last year. Now 49th. Why? He's working with Butch Harmon again, the best coach in the game. He's still young. He's only 34. He has a 2nd place at the Masters, US Open and the Open in his past. He has 3 top 10s at the PGA. He's got, on his last 5 starts in tour, finished in the top 20 in every event. His irons are going very well. He's hitting his irons very well at the moment, Ricky. I remember when he won the Players' Championship a few years ago, showed a lot of resilience to do that. I think Ricky Fowler is going to be a comeback story in the next year to 18 months in golf. Why not this week at 60-1 for 5 each way? And the final pick, through green tinted glasses, is Séamus Power at 200-1 for 3 each way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you read the Paul Kimmage stuff. Fascinating two-parter over the last couple of weeks about Séamus and his journey from...
Seems like a good fella.
Yeah. Waterford to East Tennessee to like going round in the Avis car and being 429th in the world at the end of 2020. This is only early 2023 and he's now 39th in the world. What a story this is. He's won a couple of times in the Tour. He turned up the PGA last year, tied 9th in his first start. Then he was tied 12th at the US Open. He does make a lot of birdies. I was going through the stats on him. And through all that adversity and having to be the guy living in the Holiday Inns and the, whatever they call them over in America, the budget hotels, driving around. And now you've gone from that to being somebody who's got millions of dollars in the bank, a couple of year exemption. You know, you are as free as Rory McIlroy is in the straitjacket. You are just as free as a bird. And I think that there's always a surprise, there's always a name, there's always somebody who comes out of nowhere and does something in these tournaments. It's not always going to be Ram, Sheffield or Rory. It doesn't work that way.
In the PGA in particular?
Yeah, exactly. Jason.
This is the one.
Yeah, Jason Duffner won this 10 years ago. 20 years ago, Sean McKeel turned up at Oak Hill and won and had not won a tournament before, and he's never won a tournament since. So you can have strange results. And Mito Pereira last year threw it away on the final hole and allowed Justin Thomas to get in and win the playoff against Will Zalatoris. So I think Séamus Power, I think the penny's dropped for him. I think he's got a very good short game. And I think a 200-1 for an Irish perspective, it might be worth a run for your money. So Séamus Power, Ricky Fowler, the kind of more the each way ones. Patrick Cantlay and the headline tip for Virtual Insanity. PGA edition, folks, is Xander Schauffele. It'll probably be the 5th story if Séamus Power wins because of all the sport we have this weekend.
That's this week's Virtual Insanity.
You have entered Power Drive.
I think they might make it number 1 if he wins.
Yeah, hopefully.
Top of the league. Unless Limerick crash out, which is a possibility.
Yeah, that is mad, isn't it? It's amazing what one game can do, the Clare-Limerick game, just in terms of the whole... Like, it's great as a Clare fan, if Clare beat Cork, we're in the Munster final, if we lose to Cork, but if Tipperary beat Limerick are out and Clare are through. So it's kind of fallen Clare's way a bit at the moment.
I think it looks like Thurles is going to be close to a sellout for this game, whereas...
It's on TV, yes!
Whereas the game between Mayo and Kerry might not be.
Right.
I think sales at the moment are sluggish. Now the weather's going to be really good, so maybe that changes people's minds and they all decide to to go for the day
Are
out.
people really interested in the football championship though? Really, until the quarterfinals?
Well, that's where
yeah, they are.
What I'm getting to here is why is Kerry Mayo not doing more business when it's Kerry and Mayo, two of the best teams in the country?
Because I think there are 16 round robin teams into 12. They're both going to qualify for the preliminary quarterfinals at least anyway.
But do you want to avoid that preliminary quarterfinal, don't you?
Like if you're going to win it, you're going to win it. So I just think there are too many meaningless games in the Gaelic Football Championship at the moment. One thing I was very interested in was Michael Foley in the Sunday Times had this really good idea, which I thought, yeah, this is a really good idea, to actually split football and hurling completely and keep the split season. So you do the football championship between, say, whatever, February and July, and then you've got the football club season. But you have the hurling club season for the first 6 months, and then you've got the hurling championship after that. So between whatever, July and September, October. I think that would be a really good way of letting the championship at inter-county level breathe, keeping the split seasons, not having all this madness of traffic jam and congestion you have at the moment, which is annoying everybody.
We definitely talked about this one time before, and I remember the answer that comes back is, what about the dual club player whose games keep getting put off at various stages? I do wonder if there's no way of like having a forum where you listen to those people and they have a say, and you take on board what they have to say, and you say, okay, well, everybody has to give a little bit for this. But I think that, like, on balance, having them have their own windows would be pretty amazing,
wouldn't it? You'd have, and then I think you'd also then, I think, be able to get a bit more clarity in everybody's minds about, okay, we can run the provinces in February, March, and then we can run a kind of a league structure or whatever, or a full now clear football structure until July, and have no competition from hurling for TV, and then run, and hurling is obviously a shorter season anyway, then run hurling, summer hurling, July, August, September, and have your hurling championship finished then.
Well, Colin O'Rourke's point yesterday was even around the nature of the championship. So in the football, he was like, you play the league, and then you go into a championship structure in your province, then you go back into a league now for the round robins, and then you go back into a championship for the quarterfinals, which confuses players.
In a way, right? Not really.
To a degree, though, it's
like the players they've got to do their jobs. I think that what's happened here is that the league and the provincial championships have now morphed into less relevant, because we're about to have a round robin, which is exactly the type of system we should have. Now, you could have a home and away, and you could have a third tier, so there's more jeopardy. Like 16 teams is too many to be competing for the All-Ireland. We know there aren't 16 teams who could win it.
But why don't we just have 16 to 8?
Well, why don't we have 12, 10 and 11 or 12, depending on whether or not you want New York to come over and back. I'm fairly sure the organisation has more than enough money to facilitate that, and it could be a really good thing for them if they were to think long term about this. But if you actually had 3 tiers instead of 2, have your provincial championships at the start of the year, and there's a trophy, and you incentivise the teams to win that by offering massive amounts of support for the winning team's holiday fund, or whatever you need to do. Like maybe you guarantee them an extra $1 million in funding for floodlight projects around the county, and it's a big massive celebration, and everybody comes to those games because it's important. And then you have your proper home and away 8 or 9 games that are all championship games all around the country. Is that not, like, is the solution not staring us right in the face? A league-based championship?
Well, the solution for me is always to have you have to have 4 leagues, because then you have that extravaganza of Croke Park, where you have a Friday night, say, Division 4 final, then you have Saturday Division 3 and Division 2 finals, and then you have the All-Ireland final on the Sunday, and then you have the massive bank holiday for the country on the Monday.
I think using your bank holidays is also a really good idea. There's been lots of Mondays recently where there's been no sport on that are bank holidays, and you're like, oh, why are they missing these opportunities? It used to be great on the August bank holiday weekend for that to happen. I don't know. It's
a festival of football for the 4 leagues, like Division 4, 3, 2 and 1, and people get promoted every year, and then you have your 8-team Sam Maguire Cup, or 16, whatever.
That'd be pretty intense, and it'd be brilliant.
Yeah, home and away. Dublin go to Kerry back up to Dublin, Mayo, Dublin, and then maybe the top 2 finish off at the grand final. Like something not too dissimilar to Aussie rules.
What about Julian Nagelsmann being ruled out of the Spurs job? Where are you in the Spurs melodrama at the moment? Thomas Frank could be great.
Thomas Frank could be great. Roberto De Zerbi could be great. Sloke could be great. The Feyenoord guy. They all could be great, but they got to work with Daniel Levy and Donald Cullen and the Enoch board. So that's a challenge. based on the fact that it seems that Antonio Conte and Jose Mourinho and Nuno Espirito Santo and all of these managers didn't seem to have that beautiful gel that Mauricio Pochettino seemed to have at the board. And like, it was a big mistake to sack Pochettino, and of all places he's going to Chelsea. It's like Brian Clough losing the power struggle at Derby County in the early 70s and then rocking up a couple of years at Forest and winning 2 European Cups.
Yeah, it's possible that Pochettino wins 2 European Cups, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not beyond the bounds of possibility.
Because the money's there at Chelsea. And like, one thing about Spurs, you don't hear Spurs being linked with any players. Now, maybe you need the management structure and the recruitment and all that to be in there, but you don't hear Spurs being linked with anybody. Arsenal are already making their plans for next season, 200 million, whatever the Kroenke war chest is. Well, they're getting rid of Xhaka. They're getting Rice in. They've got these targets.
We'll see about that.
So
that comes in the immediate aftermath of them being crushingly murdered at home by a supposedly inferior opposition, and then all of a sudden the transfer leaks happen. Oh, that's interesting timing, isn't it?
I think they were
distract them from our failure.
I think they were shot. I think they were gone.
They were, yeah. And maybe it was just the last sting of a dying wasp against Newcastle.
And it's going to be painful for Arsenal because it's going to be harder for them next season. It'll be harder for everybody. The one exciting thing about it is Liverpool, for their own sake, should get their act together.
Well, they've got a shock new German director who's coming in.
Yeah.
This is very interesting. We'll do more on that later on in the week.
Yeah, he's good pals with Klopp. Chelsea should get their act together. United, if the Qataris actually win this, Newcastle, City, it's going to be a big landscape changing over the next 5 years.
Villa.
There's Villa they've got a new guy in there. Was it somebody in the back
Barca's guy,
yeah, Barcelona.
Yeah, there you go. And those guys are, they've a lot of money.
Well, and they're also very important. The football director.
So Spurs forget about Spurs.
Let's one last thing. Shane Long. Shane Long had that moment that most people don't get in their lives, where he knocked over the world champions at home with an absolutely stunning goal. That's a career right there. The header against England, it was a friendly, was it? It was a friendly. Was he also the fastest player in the Premier League at one point?
There were stats about him, weren't there? His pace, ridiculous.
It's the only time I ever cursed on Twitter was when Shane Long scored that goal. I said, I want a mulligan for this, but that was an effing brilliant live moment.
You were in the stadium.
Look, that's the first time I remember now I felt that Lansdowne Road had become a soccer stadium and became like it was the birth of the Lansdowne Road Aviva Stadium, because before that it wasn't, but that was the first day of it.
I wish him the very best. I wonder, would he be interested in coming back and playing a bit of football in Ireland, or maybe
a bit of hurling? Maybe
just a little bit of hurling. He's not too old just yet. He could do it.
Yeah.
He scored the fastest goal in the Premier League as well. 7.69 seconds is the note coming through here from Colin.
He's one of our greatest strikers of all time, like from an Irish perspective, isn't he? To have such a career in the Premier League consistently.
No. We don't need to overrate it. Like, he had a great career.
Not be the top 10 Irish strikers of all time.
Well, top 10, like
that's the greatest Irish strikers of all time.
I mean,
depends on how big your list is going, but the top 10 strikers of all time in Ireland would be pretty impressive.
First off, it's Robbie Keane, and then it's John Aldridge,
Frank
Stapleton,
and
then it's Niall Quinn, and then after that, I'd need to go back and ask Gilesy about his generation. But like, I don't feel the need to grandfather him onto any list. He had an incredible career with great moments, but I don't, he didn't hit the heady heights.
Consistently Premier League is my point. Like, I think he's certainly in a conversation for one of our great strikers. I'm not saying he's ahead of any of those names you mentioned. Of course,
they're like, what's your definition of greatness then? You're like 8th or 9th or 10th on the list, but like the gap between you and the top of the list.
Consistently in the Premier League. Imagine if we had strikers like Evan Ferguson all of a sudden is getting a few goals in the Premier League. We're losing our minds.
I would just check the stats on how consistently he scored in the Premier League.
Who?
Shane Long,
yeah.
Well, he was a consistent Premier League striker, but he was one of those workhorses.
11th in the all-time list for Irish scorers.
I always laugh at the Trapattoni Shane Long.
Nathan says he's 11th in the all-time list for Irish scorers in the English top flight.
Right.
I ask Shane Long why he no baby. That's one of my favourite ever quotes in Irish football. Maybe we can play it.
I don't think we need to anymore. That was
it was
perfect.
JD.
Yeah, all right, lads.
On that note, good stuff. More from John, of course, on Saturday afternoon on Off the Ball on News Talk. Now, we're turning our attention to hurling, and whatever about there being no jeopardy in the football this weekend, there is tons and tons of jeopardy for particularly the Munster Hurling Championship. I'm delighted to say Séamus Hickey is with us to talk to us about this. Séamus, we did not expect to be in this situation where there are a sequence of events which aren't that ridiculous this weekend, which could see Limerick crashing out of the championship. We did not see this forthcoming at all.
I saw it coming insofar as it was going to be an exceptionally competitive Munster Championship, and I saw that Clare were second on the list for Limerick, and that could go either way. So I would have seen a potential scenario. I don't think it's definitely possible. I don't know if it's going to be likely that Limerick are going to be out of the championship by the end of the weekend, but the reason they're there is because Hip are playing really well. Cork came back and snatched a draw to save their Munster Championship lives in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. Clare, gave a huge performance against Limerick and then met a really, really disappointing Waterford side. So outside of Waterford, I would say the 4 teams in Munster are playing, they're playing for their lives. And that's championship. That's brilliant for me. Like, that goes back to the times when you had no safety blanket. You were playing a Munster semi-final for the chance to stay alive, and you're going for it. There's nothing to hold back for. And to me, that's perfect. I love the round robin because we get great matches and we get them more regularly. But the stakes this weekend remind me of what I feel championship's about.
Yeah, it's a bit mad in that the football championship has been designed so that all the good teams get through, and the Munster Hurling Championship has been designed so at least one good team every year gets kicked out by basically the end of May. It kind of feels like maybe some people learned some lessons from the Munster Hurling when they were drawing up the football, but I don't know, it's a bit harsh on one of those 4 good teams you've been talking about.
Yeah, but realistically then, when you're talking about the Leinster Championship and Munster Championship combined, you've 11 total teams in the race for Liam McCarthy, and then you bring in the Joe McDonagh champions, and that's 12. So we're dealing with the disadvantage of just not having enough top tier hurling counties, I would say, for competitiveness across the board. You'd rechange this championship structure if you had 16, 18 competitive teams. Even if they had like football, where you've got maybe 12 really high end teams, in the top, Division 1, Division 2 in the National League, would say. But that's the reality we're dealing with in hurling, is that we have a traditionally, competitive and dog eat dog Munster Championship, and then with Galway grafted into the Leinster Championship, it becomes far more interesting. For me, the Dublin Wexford game became incredibly meaningful, particularly in the last 5-10 minutes when Wexford were hunting for that score to stay alive, and Dublin then saw it out. So to me, it's 2 good championship structures, and in Munster, the consequences are pretty stark.
Why are Limerick playing a little bit less fluently this year than they have in previous seasons?
Good question. But if we flash back 12 months, right? So Limerick 12 months ago were off a horrendous league campaign, and there was this same existential questions about is it too hard to sustain this, and are they on the decline? So flash forward then 12 months, the Limerick players were the ones that consciously wanted to go for the league this year. They were the ones who wanted to go for the trophy and to show what they were about. And they did that in emphatic circumstances. Their second half against Tipperary in the semi-final was, again, it was an exceptional performance. The final against Kilkenny, whereas I would say Kilkenny probably weren't primed, and because of the Ballyhale contingent and the depth that they went into the club championship, they probably weren't, I'd say, at full tilt. But Limerick, again, performed exceptionally well. And trying to sustain that, because the league and the championship are so close, to aim for a final, win a final, and then carry that momentum into another competition where it's actually the earlier rounds, I think that's a difficult thing to do. And I think they probably did pay for that against Waterford. The performance against Waterford was lackluster. It was loose. It was indisciplined at times. And then when it came to Clare, they actually played quite well. Séamus Flanagan and Aaron Gillan are still very sharp. Tom Morrissey caused all sorts of trouble to Diarmuid Ryan in the half-forward line. Yes, we lost Keane. That was a huge loss, for me. But structurally, Declan Hannon's having a good year. there's a lot of good things happening. It's just that Clare fought for absolutely everything. They won, I would say, 80% of the turnovers around midfield, and Limerick had 15 wides and lost by 1 point. So that's how close these games are, and that's what the margins are when two very good teams play off against each other. And look at the two versions of the championship fair we got from Limerick and Clare last year. What was between the two teams last year? It was literally a puck of a ball. So for me, it's not panic stations, I don't think, for Limerick, but they don't have the fluency I would have seen, even at times. But I'd say 2021 is their high watermark. Last year, it felt like a struggle all the year through, from the start of the championship to the end. It was just win at whatever cost and by whatever margin it was necessary just to get over the line. This year, they played well against Clare and lost to a team that was better on the day. And now they're going to come up against a Tipperary team who are hurling really well with a lot of cohesiveness, I would say. They're moving the ball really well from back to front. They look like they're coached well. They look like they're playing to a plan, and they're going to be hard to break down. But that same Tipperary team has conceded, 6 goals in 2 championship matches. So that's one for Séamus Flanagan and Aaron Gillane to sharpen their knives for.
Séamus, you get all these rumours abound of discontent in the Limerick camp, shock exits from the squad, completely unverified rumours, I should add.
Sorry, we verified that they were untrue. We did actually talk to the Limerick press office and okay, here, look, we're just doing this because that's we have to do it, and they were like, no, not true.
And on all this, Séamus, when rumours like this that aren't verified start coming out, I guess it's just a sign of a team that has been so successful that all of a sudden these things crop up from somewhere and people try to latch onto it.
Well, like I think of any high functioning team, and the only team I can compare them to are this current crop of Limerick players and this team and the management setup as well. Like the only teams I can compare them to are like the Dublin, 6 in a row football team, the Kilkenny 4 in a row hurling team, the really high functioning teams, the Uniteds of the 99, 2000 kind of era, like when Ferguson was in his pomp. We really just had a villain at the top that people want to see fall. And, the price of success is that you're there to be shot at. So I don't think you can't complain about these things. You just have to get on with it. For me, particularly, the interest in the players off the field heightens. I never had that same interest off the field for most of my career with Limerick. It was, and after 2018, when I stepped away, I really saw it, step up drastically. And unfortunately, that's part of the modern world. So particularly the online world, where you kind of have to be either ready for the scrutiny or you don't put yourself in the public arena. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one for players. They're under the microscope for pretty much every time they go out on a night out these days. So it's a strange one. And like you said, rumors. Then you've no control over that. You've zero control over unsubstantiated stories that sound good and that people want to be true but are not. So it's I think it's part of being at the top. I remember again the same kind of stories coming out of the Dublin camp. A lot of it centred around Diarmuid Connolly, a lot of it centred around the different personalities that people didn't understand but wanted to get at. The likes of, so Stephen Cluxton was a mysterious guy. People were basically trying to create stories that fit their view of him rather than actually understanding who the guy was. So, it sounds like that time.
Yeah, and it also the gossipy nature of Irish life and society. We do love a bit of gossip, and WhatsApp has also fed into the ability for some randomer says something in a pub and suddenly it gets everywhere. Just in terms of how the team are changing, or if they are changing from a tactical perspective, and how other teams are beginning to understand what it was that Kinnerk's philosophy was doing to them. It does feel like there's been a bit of a close, like for all of the difficulties that Davies had at Waterford, he still did manage some things which caused Limerick some issues. And then the next day out, we saw Clare completely revitalised from their opening championship match, do something slightly different again, which is also natural part of that progression through a great team. Eventually Mayo got closer and closer and closer to Dublin without ever getting over the line against them. So do you expect a reaction or a response from Limerick that they'll change things up slightly?
See, I don't think they're going to change fundamentally what they do, because it is so bedded in and so ingrained. What I kind of push back again about what you were saying about teams are doing tactically. So if you actually look at the first 15 minutes of the Waterford game, before Waterford lost Tig to Borca, Limerick were basically, they could do what they wanted. When Waterford dared them to do short puck outs, they did them. And they went out to Sean Finn, they went out to Barry Nash, and they worked them through the lines very easily, because Waterford were pushing back. They were sitting off the half-back line to basically cut out the dangerous long ball to the half-forward line to Hegarty. So Limerick basically had their way for the first 15 minutes and scored at will. And even could have had more if Billy Nolan wasn't. I thought Billy Nolan's performance against Limerick was superb in goals for Waterford. So they really did have their way. For me, as soon as Tig Borca went off, Limerick got an extra man. Limerick didn't have Tig as the sweeper to avoid, a talismanic character for Waterford off the team. I genuinely think they sat back and I think they relaxed a bit. And I think Waterford realised that they had lost somebody of huge importance and had to fill in the energy and the leadership that he provides. And they raised their game. And I think the game completely changed, because everybody was expecting a rout after the first quarter. And I think Limerick then were actually taking short balls and hitting them long, and they were doing uncharacteristic things. I think they went out of character against Waterford. Against Clare, Clare's long puck out against Limerick was diabolical. It was useless. They lost 60% of their long puck outs against Limerick. What they were winning was turnovers. They were winning hooks and blocks and tackles and turnovers. In the half-forward line and midfield particularly. Dave Fitzgerald was huge for them. I thought Cathal Malone was brilliant around the middle. Ryan Taylor for me this year has been a revelation. I think he's really grown into and stepped into a really strong role for Clare. I think that tactically against Clare, Limerick weren't out-thought. I think they were outworked. And because a lot of the things that Clare were doing against Tipperary, did it against Limerick last year, and a lot of those things they did last year. So I think it came down to execution. So I think teams have tested Limerick tactically, trying to dare them to go short and work it out, and they've actually been very good at that when they've been disciplined. But a couple of times against Clare, they took a short ball to Dan Morrissey, and Dan Morrissey stood on his D and launched it, which to me is not the way. It's not the way it's coached anyway by Connacht. It's work the ball through the lines and then launch from your own half back line, your own 65, where the likelihood of hitting space and a more accurate ball into your full forward line, which is our dangerous line, that's the way Limerick want to play. But I would say when you as players, when you actually relax a bit and get outside of what you should be doing, then I think the consequences are then you don't look as fluent or as joined up as you should be, and I think that was the case.
Okay, obviously the emotional understanding of how that game against Waterford went then would suggest that when they're going to be up for the game, they're going to be okay, and nothing more alive than a full Thurles against Tipperary to make you feel alive in the Munster Hurling Championship, particularly when your crown might be on the line. So in a weird way, would it be better for them if it was increased jeopardy in the game in Thurles?
I think it's overly simplistic to say if they're up for it. They're playing good teams, but I think it is.
If they don't allow the complacency to seep in,
yeah, exactly.
That's what I mean.
So yeah, I agree with that. So if you're talking about trying to stay focused, then there's nothing focuses the mind like the potential of a do or die. But it also, for me, the Clare loss might not have been a bad thing to recalibrate, but also the 3-week break. They're really, really fortunate with the schedule. With the 3-week break since the Clare game before this Tipperary game, of all the teams that are there, I very few are better than Limerick than going away to a camp, refocusing and coming out of it rejuvenated. So it's for me, the timing is even better for them. And like you said, a full Thurles against a quality team that you cannot take for granted. That's a good thing. I think it's from a Limerick perspective, you'd expect a reaction in terms of performance, and I would hope as a Limerick person that that's enough come Sunday.
Could the Limerick bench prove fairly crucial, Séamus? Because you think back to the league game, and if memory serves me correctly, Tip stayed in the game for large swathes of it, but then the Limerick kind of brought the troops off the bench, and slowly but surely they throttled Tipperary out of the game. And if you look at the lads who came off the bench against Clare the last day, Mike Casey, Hegarty, Mulcahy, Conor Boylan came on late as well. They have some serious strength and depth that could prove crucial at the weekend.
Yeah, so I think every team is building a strong 5 subs off the bench. I see it across the board now. I see it with Clare, with Jim Meehan and Rob Mounsey. I see it in Tipperary. I see it with the likes of Conor Stakelum came on the last day. I thought he was superb. And they've got 3 or 4 different guys that they're bringing in to really shore up the 15, because that's what the modern game requires. For me, for Limerick, I think their bench is strong, but then you're testing your bench when you've got the likes of Cian Lynch now struggling for fitness, and like Sean Finn for me, he's irreplaceable for what he is. He's an incredible player. He's just a joy to watch how he plays the cornerback position for me. But the reality is then, like, you've got Mike Casey coming in, and he's a top tier fullback as well. So, we're fortunate that we have the depth, and Richie English is still there, and another all-star cornerback. He's still there to come on. So we do have depth, particularly in defence. We've got incredible depth. But then when it comes up the field, when you lose the likes of Keane, when you lose the likes of even Garrod being off the last day, for me, I have great faith in Cathal O'Neill, but it's slightly below the pace and the standard that's required yet. He can grow into that. He's a very young guy. But yeah, so that bench is going to be important. But for me, for Tipperary and the league was a kind of a repeat of what I've seen previous years, is they need to be able to close out games. I think that's as much mental as it is physical, and even in terms of executing skills. Like even against Cork, just been unable to close out 5-6 point leads in late stages of games, and just for me, that's there's going to be questions there for me for that Tipperary team until they actually do it.
Yeah, until
they close out a team, until they stop Limerick in the second half, because unfortunately the last 3 years they've really fared poorly in the closing period against them.
Well, they're going to have a full-throated roaring them home if they do have a 5 or 6 point lead on Sunday. Great to have you with us. Thanks a million, Séamus. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
It's Séamus Hickey helping us preview the Limerick game specifically at the weekend. We'll talk more about the Clare Cork game later on in the week as well. Some highlights for you on the OTB Podcast Network. Caitlin Thompson was on talking tennis. The football pods, Paddy, James and Tommy talking about Dunlogue. And also Rugby Daily with the latest from Ronan O'Gara. You can subscribe to all of those in their various individual feeds. It was OTB Daily was the Caitlin Thompson one. Follow us across all our social channels, @OffTheBall on Twitter, @OffTheBall AM for the specific show handle. After the ads, Kildare professional boxer Dennis Hogan's going to join us in studio. First, here is Gavin Cooney and Joe last night talking about Gavin's favourite commentator, George Hamilton.
Best commentator I've ever heard is George Hamilton. I think that will always be.
We were blessed, weren't we? Just how good he was. Yeah. It's just like incredible ability to find the right words for the right moment. I'm obviously incredibly jealous of that. He's still not on my television enough these days.
No, not at all. I don't really know what's happening there. No. I don't think he did the World Cup final either.
Apparently he's on GA Go. Another conversation.
Imagine. He's just always found the right words for the right moment, and
imagine the pressure, scripted. Like on a younger man, as Dave O'Leary's taking the penalty, you better nail this.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone has ever, if you're looking at television viewing audience as a percentage of, I don't think anyone has ever broadcasted that percentage of a country's population of the penalty shootout in Italia 90, because it was on RTE2, the news was on RTE1, and it cut live to the penalty shootout in Italy, and I don't think there were any other channels at the time. So literally 100% of the people watching television in Ireland that day, which was most of the people in the country, were listening to.
You're listening
to OTB AM. OTB GAA.
I think it has become a little bit sanitised. You need somebody to bring a bit of colour and wit and enthusiasm.
Last point on this. Conor O'Rourke said that in punditry today, that colour, wit and enthusiasm is missing. Tune into the football pod. Paddy Anders and James Dunn will bring it for you.
Subscribe to the OTB GAA podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts.
OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
Okay, the Katie Taylor fight is this weekend on the undercard. Dennis Hogan defending his IBO super welterweight world title. Dennis, welcome home.
Yeah, it's good to be back here, mate. Yeah, finally, after all this time fighting here in Ireland, you know.
What's it like?
Yeah, great. The buzz is fantastic. Happy to get up to Dublin, but I was here for 3 weeks preparing in Kildare, and everything's gone to plan, so it's exciting.
So for people who don't know, you've been in Australia a long time at this stage.
Yeah, maybe 12 years or something. I went over 2011, early 2011 to get a few fights, and probably was planning on basing myself in America, but got there and grew roots, and here we are.
So just spool back a bit. You fought as an amateur. When did you decide to go pro?
Oh, look, you remember the recession kicked in 2008, and I was a carpenter for 10 years, and things got a little... it was just getting to that point where I was either going to go professional now or not, and then there was no shows pretty much in Ireland around that time, or very little, and I knew there was a load of shows going on in Australia, so I went back there and
was it obvious to go to Australia? Like, how did the idea come about?
Oh well, not to everyone, it wouldn't have been, but I'd gone over there on an Irish team, so and then I was told, you know, if you ever want to go, because I sort of did have a bit of a pro style about me anyway, and I was told if you ever want to go back and get a fight, you can come back here, and that's what I did.
So you turned pro essentially over there, basically, right?
Yeah.
Not a well-worn path in Irish boxing history. Not many people have done that before, have they?
Yeah, but one person had done it before me, Dean Byrne from Crumlin, had gone over and done the same thing.
Right.
So there was a little bit of a path there, but I was happy to go over. I had been there backpacking for a year. I really did like Brisbane, so I said, why not go back there and you know, do your morning runs in the sun.
When you say you did have a pro style, maybe explain that to people, what that entails. Like, why did you suit the professional ranks particularly?
Well, for me especially was just that, you know, the third round, we'd be in the third round, and the fight would be over, and I would have had a lot more to give. I'd be just warming into the fight, so we knew that longer rounds was going to suit me. I've got a great chin, and you know, I just that longer, grueling sort of battle against someone in amateur boxing. It's in out fast as you can, get the points, and even though I developed a good skill in terms of hit and not be hit fast, pro did suit me better. Yeah.
Have you enjoyed the smack talk element of it as well? The little bit of build up to fights, and James Metcalf is your opponent this weekend. But has that been a friendly build up, or one filled with aggro, or how's that?
Look, no, I didn't come over for the press conference early, and he had a little bit to say. He seems confident, but nothing I haven't heard before. I've heard it all, and it's all a bit of fun. Usually, when people are going on and on, they're usually telling you exactly how they're feeling and thinking in a funny, strange way. So I usually like to let people talk, and it usually lets me know where they're at, you know.
So you're talking in the ring.
That's it, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, why buy into it all when the bell goes? It all happens there. So it's all fun and games really until the bell goes.
You used to go to the Bernard Dunn fights.
Yeah, look, I mean, this is amazing for me. I remember being at those fights, and even when he made his homecoming in the National Stadium, I remember being there and being amazed by the whole spectacle of professional boxing, which was completely different to the amateur in terms of spectacle. But that was brilliant, and even when I won my title, I got a brilliant message. I only seen a week after the win of Bernard saying, "Well done, Dennis, world champion," and I've looked at that video again last week, and it got me excited again for what's going to happen in the Tree Arena, where I used to watch him fight a lot back in the day. So it's a very exciting time, you know.
Full circle.
Yeah, full circle, yeah.
It sounds like it wasn't always your intention to go pro. Like, if the recession hadn't come and your carpentry business had been going well, would you have been happy out with a really good amateur career and getting into business and staying? Like, is there a sliding doors moment here where there's a completely different world where you're doing analysis of fights, you're training in a local club here and you're happy? Or would you have been completely unfulfilled, do you think, if you hadn't taken the path you've taken?
Well, it's funny enough, because as a kid, I think just before I hit my teenage years, if someone asked me what do you want to be when you grow up, I used to say a carpenter and a professional boxer. So professional boxing was always on my horizon. It wasn't very conscious of it. throughout my amateur days. But then there was a moment, like you say, it just came and said, right, it's now or never now. It's getting to that time. And then with everything kicking in the way it did, and I was ready to make a bit of a change in life anyway. You know, I'd done 10 years as a carpenter here, and I felt like I'd nearly done a lifetime. So it was time to move on and just do that as well, and the opportunity arose.
Australia obviously isn't just professional boxing, is it? You've got loads of other things going on out there as well. You've kind of developed different strands to your life and your career.
Yeah, that's it. Look, it's a massive sporting country in terms of everything. Everything they do, they want to be the best at, and there's a massive competition there for everything. But you know, the domestic scene over there, people didn't know when I was there. Like, I had everything I needed to become the boxer I was, with sparring and everything, and people didn't really give it the weight it deserved. And now you have a champion nearly in every, a world champion in every weight over there. Jason Maloney just won a world championship again, and we had my sparring partner Jeff Horn beat Manny Pacquiao, and you know, there's so many great fighters there, and I was lucky that I was in that domestic league, getting better, and when I get onto the world scene, then I was ready, and that was something that people didn't know about Australia. You know?
You're slightly older, coming to that level of professional boxing than most people as well. Is that part of being ready too, that actually you never fully understand the value of maturity until you look back and you go, okay, I made a good decision there that maybe I wouldn't have made in my 20s?
Yeah, no, yeah, look, I mean, that certainly was the way with me. Sometimes people could have screamed stuff at me and I wouldn't have heard what they were saying until I was ready to hear it. I was one of those people, but you know, in terms of being 38 and still boxing, I don't know what's gone on or why, but I've just seemed to get fitter, healthier and better with age. So like, you know, people should be slowing down. I think it's the passion that I have for boxing and the goals and how determined I am to hit them, that I have this sort of longevity. The fact that I hit and not be hit is sort of my main thing, and I don't get into big wars. And like, Metcalf will try to drag me into a war here, there's no doubt, and that's probably his best opportunity at winning. But you know, for me, it's about just doing what I do best and just avoiding that. I'll put my foot in the tire when it's time, when I want to, but it's about dictating myself and getting there, you know.
I'd read that after your third fight, you gave up alcohol, you started focusing heavily on your diet, training probably went up another notch. Did something click in your brain at that point that you were like, right, I'm really going to focus on this now? Yeah,
well, that's it. Like, you know, that's my tattoo here says, give it everything you've got. My grandfather, I didn't know it at the time because I was actually annoyed at the time, but it's actually nearly something you'd see on a movie. When he knew I was partying one night, and he said just give up that drink, son, and give it everything you've got. And he passed the phone back to my mum. Little did I know they would be the last conscious words he'd ever say to me.
All right.
So after I went and had a draw, and then in my third fight, and then he passed away, it hit me. I was like, what am I doing? Like, this isn't amateur where you can have losses and it doesn't mean anything. This is a professional boxing career, and a loss sets you back years, especially at this point in my career. But so I just went all in, and just and it was the best decision I'd ever made in my whole life.
Paddy Burke is the grandfather that you have the tattoo. He was a renowned coach himself.
That's right. Yeah, he brought me along from the age of 6 or 7 to Naas Boxing Club. And you know, I was there as a kid and underage fighting up to the age of 11, and then competitive till 13, till I went to Grange Con. He gave it up after that, but he was always there. I was always in my corner. He was always a big influence on me. Yeah,
it was in the blood then.
You weren't. You weren't ready to hear that.
Wasn't ready. Yeah. Oh, but up to that point, I wasn't ready to hear anything. Not that anyone was screaming at me. Like, it's like, you know, it sort of got blown out of proportion back in the day. You know, then it's this, that, and headlines, and you know, a grilling on KFM. But
what kind of stuff? I missed all that. Sorry.
Oh, well, it was just all, you know, about being an alcoholic and all this stuff, and there was spreads going on, and I got grilled, and I was, you know, was it a case then to be bottles in your bags? It's like, no, mate, I wasn't sleeping rough. I wasn't.
This is on the radio.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Jesus.
So there was all that going on, and even, I mean, there was a bit of a pressure then after that to just make sure that, you know, because people were probably worried then if they thought, but it was never like that. I was just a bucko, and I liked messing with the boys, and we did all that, and we did a bit of partying, but then, you know, and then as an amateur, I didn't have big aspirations to go to the Olympics or World Championships. So I was a carpenter, I was a boxer, and I was just a boy, you know, I was just a man coming up. And then when I went professional, though, just dropping all of that, it didn't happen as quick as it should have. And then
this story is not a million miles away from Eric Donovan's story. Like, you know, and obviously from 15 miles down the road of each other, you both have to have these moments where you recognise I need to change.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I mean that's what it was, and I knew that it wasn't good overall. But you just you're not ready to sort of hear it. You're not ready to take it on. You think you're invincible and you're young.
And so your grandfather's passing is that moment dropping, is it?
Yeah, because he'd said the words to me, and then when I went home to see him, he was passing away. He was actually unconscious. I didn't get to speak to him, and then I came home. It was a quick turnaround, and I had a draw in a fight that I should have easily won. And then you know, just things was going on, and then he passed away, and I just went, what am I doing? This needs to stop, and I need to go all in, you know, and I did go all in, you know. So
what does that mean, going all in? Like,
yeah, just everything. I call it monk mode. I got, you know, just in terms of everything, I'm in monk mode now. 11 weeks, no nothing, live like a monk, just focused on winning. Game plan is the most thing I think about, and you know, obviously I'm a dad at the weekends, and I'll take my rest time and I do what I need to do. But in terms of everything else, it's like there's no outside distraction in any capacity for 12 weeks, for sure. And you just do everything legit, you know, and just have that discipline.
Obviously, you've made the point about boxing in Australia being so big and the quality of fighters is so huge. At the same time, is there part of you that would like a period now where a big performance this weekend gives you an opportunity to fight in the Northern Hemisphere for a little while before you wrap up? Or does it matter? Like, what's the...
Yeah, look, so, you know, the last fight got the monkey off my back, and that was all due to the Mexico fight too, where everybody in the whole world thought I won except the judges that was sitting there, and that was eating away at me, every conversation I had with everyone. So winning that title got the monkey off my back. Now I'm here and I'm enjoying it. I've done this my whole life. I was very passionate to get back and defend the world title in Dublin. That's happening right now. So right now I'm just in a great flow, but I do have a 3-fight deal with Matchroom, and there is 3 fights there, but the better contract is executed if I keep winning. And you know, when I get this feeling, I'm usually right, and I feel like this is going to be my best performance ever. That good country air down in Moon, that good recovery, the way I've done everything, the way my training is, the way I've finished off and I've peaked has been perfection, and I expect that I'll be putting on the best performance ever.
And the 3-fight deal, obviously they're global, but would that be focused in this part of the world, do you think?
Well, look, I mean, that Crow Park fight is still yet to happen, so everything going well with Katie's fight and everything else. I think that fight will probably happen this year too. So, just all I need to focus on is keep winning, and that's something I'm good at. So,
did I read you're distantly possibly related to Michael Hogan, shot in Bloody Sunday in Croke Park? Did I read that somewhere?
Yeah, look, down the line there will be, yeah, for sure, and you know, it's I'm pretty proud of that heritage, to be fair. You know, I certainly haven't sat down either when people have come for me in any capacity. So, yeah.
That monk mode that you mentioned, do you find that arduous? Is it tough? Are you comfortable in it? Like, are you comfortable at your weight at the moment that you're fighting at? Is it all an 11-week torture, or is it an 11-week of enjoyment for you?
Nah, it's the first week or two, but then you start to zone in on an energy. I like to visualise. I like meditation. I like, you know, all that kind of stuff. And after about a week or two, when you just shut out all outside distractions, I mean, that comes down to everything. That comes down to bedroom activities. Comes down to everything. Just complete monk mode, and you go into this serenity. And you just start to get your vibration up, and everything starts to unfold as it will, and that's something that's the vibration I believe you need to be in when you're going in, and then it starts to come out in your training and the way you execute your game plan and your clarity, and you know, just and it's just single focus for one thing and one thing only, to come out and have an excellent performance on fight night.
That visualization that you mentioned, like, is that something that you obviously think about the ring walk weeks in advance? You think about the smells of the Three Arena, the sights, the sounds, what the fans are going to sound like, even the music. I think you're picking a different song for your walk on this weekend.
That's right. Yeah, I've changed it a bit. Yeah, you're
not going to tell us obviously what it is. It's a surprise.
Let it happen. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, you know, if anyone tries to tell you the visualization doesn't work, me walking out with a title belt in the Tree Arena after starting to visualise that, when I started to see, I started to spar world champions and stuff in Australia like Daniel Gill and that, and I started to realise, whoa, if I keep going and keep putting in, I could actually get there. And when I started to believe with everything and the way everything has just unfolded, it's major coincidental, you know, if it's not actually vibration, but it is vibration. It's about putting your thoughts and being able to feel it before it happens, and you know, and this is why everything is unfolding right now, because I've visualized it nearly every single day, all this time, you know.
When did you understand all this? What was the reading or the path or the person?
It's a really funny story, and I fought on a team in England. I beat actually. I had a great win in Birmingham. I beat a fella called Jimmy McCann, who had been the English captain, and we went over and we boxed against a team there in Birmingham, and Kelly Harrington on the way back said to me, "Do you know, Dennis, there's a great book I'm going to recommend you. It's called The Secret." So she told me that anyway, and I didn't go read it straight away, but it ended up getting handed to me in a hard time. Our house got flooded and stuff, and I got stuck in and I read it, and I was going through some hard times, and I started to execute the law of attraction, and lo and behold, a lot of things started to happen. Now, it's not all about being positive all the time. It's not. It's about balance. But if you can get yourself to that feeling and you can see it and you can feel it, then it starts to happen. And then I went on this whole sort of journey for years, looking up everything I could. And, you know, now I went to seminars about vibration and visualization, Mitchell B and MJB seminars about success and stuff. And I've done all that work. And, you know, I've got a mission, I've got a purpose, I know my why, and I'm ready to execute Saturday, and that's just part of it. It's not everything, it's part of a much bigger why and mission. So
I read an interview you did with Robert Mulhern in the Leinster Leader back in 2018. He talked about you doing public speaking in Australia. Is that still something that's part of your life?
It's something that I genuinely love to do, and I think that this boxing story, every next chapter actually adds another element to it. But I can go up and speak about all sorts of stuff, like of overcoming adversity, you know, goal setting, you know, all sorts of anything that fits into my journey, which is pretty much everything. I really do enjoy going up and speaking about, and I'd like to make it something of a career after my boxing. Yeah,
I was going to ask, because this doesn't feel like a homecoming ending. You know, it's a 3-fight deal. There's stuff in the future. You're not ready to retire yet, but at the same time, it's good to have this sense of another person developing at the same time as the boxer is continuing to develop. Because at some point, the boxer will stop being the boxer.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. And again, I've already loved to do it for years. After you know, the losses there of 2019, I actually just pulled back and said, you know what, I'm not doing any more. Now it's like I've stood there and I've thought about overcoming and keep going and never give up. I've spoke about this on stage and it's been recorded, and I thought, wow, I actually have to go and win a world championship now, because if I don't, I was just, you know, just talking garbage. So I've gone and I've actually lived up to it, and I think that all that will play in nicely when I can step on stage again the next time I do. So
you seem in a good place, like, as you say, knowing your why. Like you mentioned, that Mungia decision in 2019 was remarkably controversial, but you seem to be in a place now where you won't let the highs take you too high and you won't let those lows take you too low. So it's a nice balanced place to be.
You're dead right. I think fighters like myself, you know, Tyson Fury and many other, we can tend to be quite bipolar. We go very high and go very low, and but I do have mantras and stuff like that to stop me from to be centered and be balanced. When the high goes high, I can nearly expect something to give me something to come crashing down, and the more I balance that myself and regulate it in myself, the more it stops the lows and the highs going to. So it's really just about humbling yourself when things are going good, and not being too hard on yourself when things are going bad. So
have you come to the meditation recently, or has that been a long time?
No, it's been a long time. I didn't realise how much I actually did it naturally before I understood. You know, I love to walk in the evening. It helps me sleep, and you know, I'm lucky that I live in Brisbane beside the sea, and I didn't know, but I've been walking in nature for a very long time, all that kind of stuff, and it's just it comes to me quite quickly anyway. I can zone out quite quickly and just feel good about myself, and when you spend time in that space, it starts to show up in your life as well.
What challenge will James Metcalf provide for you this weekend? You said you expect him to make it a war. How will he try and do that?
Well, look, I believe that in terms of skill and ability, I'd be superior there, and he will try to make it a dogfight. He'll come in and give it everything to try and get me to fight his fight. But it's about me being a matador in this situation, and I do love a fight and a rip, and I'll let it happen, but it'll be on my terms when it happens. And if I can do that again, like I do with fighters, I'll break his heart, and he'll feel that, and he'll get very, very lethargic and out of ideas, through halfway through the fight and onwards.
Do you know what time you're scheduled for the ring walk?
I think I could be somewhere around 8:30. I think I'm used to being the last fight, if not co-main, but Matchroom I think have me on third last this time, so is what it is. An early night for me is a change, but it's good.
Should be pretty full, I think. People getting in early to experience the whole extravaganza that will be Katie Taylor's homecoming, so I'd say there'll be a big crowd for you. Should be.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good.
Well, listen, we wish you the very best. It's been an incredible journey, and it's clearly not finished, so whatever happens this weekend, we wish you the very best, Dennis. It does feel like the whole country, certainly the comments coming in are great chat with Dennis. Best of luck to him. People are behind you, so best of luck.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Dennis Hogan fighting James Metcalf on the Katie Taylor undercard this weekend, and giving us a hint that maybe Croker is on the horizon still too. Right, on tomorrow's show we'll be back. We'll have Graham Hunter, Eric Donovan, Derek McNamara, plenty more besides. Right now, the rest of Gavin Cooney with Joe on last night's show. Enjoy.
With us, hello.
How are you, Joe? You alright?
They won't like that up around Sunderland Way.
No, absolutely. We're getting closer now to the prospect of, isn't it Kenilworth Road? Isn't that Luton's home ground? That being a Premier League venue next year, which is delightfully ramshackle.
Surprised you're here, Gav. I thought you might be over in Rochester, New York for the second golfing major of the year.
I think the budget went on the Masters this year, I have to say. We could just fill this football hour with golf talk, but I suppose we better not, given what's over the door, etc. No, not there. Following on TV like the rest of you schmucks.
Yeah. This being the week, of course, where Arsenal's title challenge formally ended. To quote Martin Odegaard, it feels like there is no hope.
Yeah, and I don't know if is that in relation just to this weekend or a whole general feeling of despair.
Yeah, I'm misrepresenting Martin. He was just talking about their title challenge, but it's such a great headline. I decided to misrepresent him all the same.
It's a great line because it sums up the kind of despair that is involved in chasing down this Man City team. I even feel like this Milan Derby is hectic and it's frantic. But there is a certain futility around it all, just knowing that the winner of the second semi-final, which is likely to be Manchester City, just so much better than either of these sides, and they'll probably get pumped in the final.
Well, I do think now City might want to sit down and strategise about how they handle the next few weeks. So all things being equal...
This is dangerous stuff now for let loose Pep's brain across unfamiliar terrain.
If they want... And let's assume they do the business tomorrow for a second. They may need to think about pulling up the handbrake a touch. So don't beat Inter by 5. Beat them by 2. Don't win the league by 10 if Arsenal implode here. Just win it by 3. And let's not stuff United 4-0. Let's just win 1-0 and play keep ball. If we pummel Milan and United and just win the league at a canter, then all that pesky journalists like you will be talking about are the 115 charges and this era of dominance. There's a degree of let's break a sweat here as we win this treble towards the end.
Yeah, restore some dignity into the victory by making it narrow and a close fought thing. It's an interesting take.
That's generous, but go on.
I am amazed by the amnesia around it all. There's no point talking about this for too long because I know people don't really want to hear about
But sorry, that is the reason for the amnesia, is that there is a presumed boredom on the part of the audience on your part.
But you can't... Yeah, I know I just said it, but you can't... It's just I feel it should have been mentioned at some point over the last couple of days, given that City have now effectively won the league. Monday Night Football, the best football show.
You're talking about the charges, we should say.
Yeah, about the 115 charges. Look, I mean, they're contesting their innocence, as they've every right to do. And, you know, whenever the process goes through, they may well be cleared. But at the moment, there is an asterisk beside all of this.
Surely.
There is uncertainty around it. And the fact that it hasn't been referred to at all since, you know, Martin Tyler talking about the depth of the Premier League, that it's not a one-team league. City are about to win their 5th title in 6 years. And, you know, Monday Night Football, the best football show that I think maybe has ever been put on television, talking yet last night about how City are a special team. And of course they are. They're incredible. But this is relevant to the whole conversation. And it seems to be a specific football thing or Premier League thing. Like, if someone won a string of Tour de France victories and was then accused by the Tour de France of having lied and potentially breaking the rules.
Imagine that scenario.
And if that cyclist then went on to win the next Tour de France, I think people wouldn't exactly be hailing that victory in a without any caveats, or in a totally uncomplicated way. So I'm amazed.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Anyway.
You're totally right. Do you want to lay off Martin Tyler? Like...
Oh, go on. Yeah, sorry. Martin Tyler's been getting it from... I thought that was... I have to say, I thought it was very unfair for Martin Keown to accuse Tyler of bias against Arsenal. I think Tyler is not... He's had an incredibly long career. He's also the hardest working man in show business.
Yeah.
I mean...
He's a bit keen.
I mean, he's the voice of football on Sky Sports. So he is the voice of the Premier League. I think he probably will always have that title. But he'll pop up everywhere. You know, obviously they don't have the rights to the Champions League. Apparently I've spoken to Will outside. Like, if you can watch the Champions League on Live Score. Yeah. And Tyler's the commentator.
No.
You know? It's just incredible. But I thought that was very unfair. I think Tyler is he doesn't get as excited as he used to.
I like that about him.
Yeah.
I think I tend to be more in a minority on that front, as your guttural sound indicated there. But I do like that he doesn't react as if he's, you know, seeing a goal for the first time in his life at every turn.
Yeah, but he does seem like there are now goals going in where it sounds like he's just stifling a yawn as he's describing them. Look, he has been...
He lets the pictures do the work.
Yeah, I suppose. He has been the best commentator. No, the best commentator... Well, this is all personal view. Best commentator I've ever heard is George Hamilton. I think that will always be...
We were blessed, weren't we? Just how good he was. Is.
Yeah. It's just like incredible ability to find the right words for the right moment. I'm obviously incredibly jealous of that.
He's still not on my television enough these days.
No, not at all. I don't really know what's happening there. No. I don't think he did the World Cup final either.
Apparently he's on GA Go. Another conversation.
Imagine. He's just always found the right words for the right moment, and
imagine the pressure,
scripted.
Like on a younger man, as Dave O'Leary's taking the penalty, you better nail this.
Yeah, and like, I don't think anyone has ever, if you're looking at television viewing audience as a percentage of, I don't think anyone has ever broadcasted that percentage of a country's population of the penalty shootout in Italia 90, because it was on RTE2, the news was on RTE1, and it cut live to the penalty shootout in Italy, and I don't think there were any other channels at the time. So literally 100% of the people watching television in Ireland that day, which was most of the people in the country, were listening to Hamilton. But you know, he is I think he's the best I've ever heard. But I've always liked Tyler a lot. I feel like I think, you know, then when his voice and the cadence of his voice would rise to meet the moment, it would be all the more effective for that, because he keeps it relatively lower key and lower tone.
He leaves himself somewhere to go
prior to that. And now he sounded croaky, I have to say, at the weekend. So I don't, maybe he wasn't 100% fit, as it were.
Listen to his podcast with Gary Neville afterwards, and his voice sounded gone.
Yeah. And it wasn't from overly exerting his vocal cords during Arsenal Brighton.
No, maybe stop, taking League 2 matches on a Tuesday, Martin.
It's incredible. Like the hardest working man. He's also a coach. He's I think he's got badges. He's coached at, is it Kingstonians at non-league level or something like that? Yeah. Or he has been an assistant manager there or something.
Back to your original point. Sorry, that was a bit of a diversion. I agree with you on the 115 charges, and actually I've listened to quite a few different podcasts. Certainly The Guardian mentioned it, and I think The Athletic, one or two others, somebody made the point, shouldn't we be mentioning the unprecedented charges a bit more about City? So I think it's in the ether, but I think the reason it's not coming up is it doesn't lead to a great conversation.
See, it's not to finish. See, football, so there's this thing of like, sport is a metaphor for life, and it's not really. It's kind of a theatre or a version of life, but there's a resolution at the end. Like there's always the result, and then over a longer period of time, there's the season, the 38 games, and then luck will even itself out over a season, and ultimately the best team will be crowned. But there's not that definitive. If you're going to, talk about the charges and everything, there's actually not a definitiveness about this title triumph now for City, because you wonder, well, what if that case goes against them down the line? And look, it may not. They maintain their innocence as they have every right to do and every right to fight their case. But there's just that lack of definition and decisiveness around it makes it really hard, because that's the these are, when City win the league, that's when the media kicks into gear and talks about how brilliant they are and what they've done well, and hail the obvious geniuses from the coach to the striker to everyone in between, but it's too hard to do. It's easier just to say, well, Arsenal bottled it. That's at least that's a kind of a definitive conversation.
Yeah.
Wish they didn't, but
well, it is tricky, the City thing, because I suspect most people have a sense of how they feel about the 115 charges, completely unprecedented, and the validity of them. City will defend themselves, but I think people look on and say, well, something about this feels a bit obvious as well. Like they've just spent a lot of money, and maybe they're better at financial manoeuvring than others. But and then, it is an asterisk.
To make no doubt, the money has obviously made a difference. Like you get in these. Maybe I'm paying too much attention to my Twitter mentions after talking about this at the weekend. People talking about like Pep makes a difference. Well, of course he does, but he's not working for free. And then like squad depth is what makes a difference over a league season. Like Arsenal lost Saliba and couldn't deal with it.
Yeah.
City can rest De Bruyne and Grealish for a weekend game against Everton in the run-in. That's what makes the difference. And
it was quite something to see plucky old Mahrez and Foden thrown in.
These guys, they're incredible players. Like Gundogan, if he does leave on a free transfer at the end of the year, will be a linchpin of whatever team he walks into.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
And he only really seems to be wheeled out for Man City in April when they need to win the league. Yeah. And he's an incredible player and always delivers for them. So,
and the main charge against Arsenal is squad depth. So it's absolutely looming large in my thinking. And now I have to say, I love watching the City team more than I've watched City teams of recent years. But I agree with you. It is like it's not being talked about enough. But then I don't know, akin to issues you may have with Newcastle ownership. Do you just have a ticker tape going along at all times?
I know there's fatigue around it. I respect that view. And you don't have to, every time you talk about Man City, you don't have to bring them up. I don't think that's a credible way of going around it. But when they win the thing, and when you're talking about how brilliant they are in the context of the full season, these charges were brought up during the season, I mean, I feel like that's an important piece of context that's missing. But there's just something very unsatisfying that we've sat down for a year. It's basically that's a long old box set that we've watched of this year's Premier League season. And what are we going to do? Cut to black? Like, we need some kind of finale and definitive end to it. But in real life, we don't have one yet.
I do think that when they win the league at a canter and potentially win a Champions League final and an FA Cup final convincingly, there will be an explosion again of, hang on.
Yeah, no, I think there will be.
The logical question will be, well, how have they just won a treble so brilliantly and with such domination? Oh, hang on. There are 115 charges against them, and not brought for the crack either. Speaking of winning the treble in convincing fashion as opposed to very dramatic fashion in 1999, Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher were on Monday Night Football last night doing their thing, and they were picking combined 11s, which, it's just good TV.
Yeah.
I didn't see this because I wasn't watching last night. I was in here, but when I heard they did this, I thought I must go and check that out. So I've a clip or two, and then you can fill us in on the general tone of the conversation. So here they are debating Manchester United 99 versus 2023 Manchester City on Monday Night Football. And so here, for instance, we have Gary Neville explaining why he will not budge on the midfield four of Beckham, Keane, Scholes and Giggs.
That midfield, by the way, Beckham, Scholes, Keane and Giggs, I'm not even entertaining from anybody. That's the greatest midfield that's ever played football in this country, bar none. There isn't anybody can ever, honestly, that there's no one comes close when it comes to a midfield quartet like that. They had absolutely everything. And that, to me, I have to say, is my selection.
Yeah.
I like how truculent he is around that.
Part of me sort of agrees. There was a moment as well where in Carragher's team he has Grealish in instead of Giggs, and he quoted the fact that Grealish has maybe scored 5 goals and 4 assists, and Giggs had immediately 3 goals and 2 assists. And Neville is a master of like a facial expression which says you're a moron. Now Jamie Redknapp reacts to that by saying, look at me when I'm talking to you. Everyone else lets it slide. But then when it came to Gundogan instead of Scholes, which was Carragher's selection, he said, Scholes was he wasn't even first choice a lot of the time, and just whatever. And Neville said, well, if we're going by stats, Gundogan scored X, Y and Z. It wasn't particularly impressive. And he said, Scholes has 18 goals and assists to his name, and he played 55 games. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
To which Carragher, who's not usually on the back foot when it comes to stats, was like, I seem to remember against Inter, it didn't come off the bench against Juve. So
I did see Paul Howard made the point on Twitter today that assists didn't exist in 1999, which is actually would have been as good a rebuttal as Carragher could have delivered.
David Beckham had 24 of them.
24 assists, yeah.
It was outrageous.
Yeah, and that was
he's much maligned, Beckham.
That was after the 98. That awful treatment that was meted out to him.
Yeah, the effigy. And they played West Ham early in the season. The abuse was off the charts. Yeah. But look, there are a lot of flaws to Beckham's general character now, and it just kind of gives me the ick, to use the technical term these days. But that season, he was absolutely sensational. I won't hear otherwise. It's not true to say otherwise. It might be fashionable. It's not true.
Yeah, that was so. Unfortunately I'm too young to remember this amazing 99 season.
He was so good.
I read the Matt Dickinson book last year and just absolutely loved it. One of my favourite sports books of last year. And Beckham actually shines through as one of the best. One of the best players of the year, and I was surprised the extent to which I was drawn to his storyline throughout that year of kind of redemptive arc from 98. Now he did granted a couple of interviews to the author, which always helps with playing up his angle of things, whereas Keane didn't go to him.
It was a big part of the year. It was that bad that people were saying, "Will he leave England?" This was kind of the sense.
But the whole run in then, that must have been the stuff of kind of epic.
It was so good.
Yeah,
there's never been a year like it. Now I was about to be 14, so I was a 13, 14-year-old across that season. Which was that's the sweet spot.
Yeah.
So I was so obsessed that I was doing my homework but listening to long wave commentary on 5 Live, crackling and holding my radio up in the corner of the room to get better signal.
Amazing.
That level of kind of obsessiveness with it. But it was just epic. And there was a Liverpool FA Cup game where they came back from the dead. And from that point on, every match they were involved in just seemed to have so much drama. Nothing was easy about it. They were always liable to mess up, and yet they kept finding ways to do it.
Yeah. Well, Neville was talking about that run in April. Was it Juventus, Arsenal, Juventus?
Yeah.
Maybe that wasn't quite the run of games, but there was a game against Sheffield Wednesday thrown in there as well.
Yeah.
But they had, and Neville made the point, Juventus were the best team in Europe at the time. Arsenal were, he didn't say the best team in England because that was Man United, but they were the next best team, and they actually were champions, I suppose, from the season before. So it must have been just this incredible sprawling epic that went on for months and months.
Unbelievable. I remember listening to the Giggs goal from the halfway line on long wave crackling radio, and Dad, did you hear this? So it's just those kind of moments, and then of course the final is the final. So it's very hard to it's hard to compare this
but there's something I don't want to. There'll be Man City fans kind of throwing their long wave radios out the window now at the moment listening to this, but that same sense of that same kind of quixotic sense is not here at all. This is just
dead by comparison.
This is just like the machine just eating up the next bit of ground that it's in front of it, and it's ultimately if they do this treble, which I think they probably will, it's obviously an incredible achievement. Asterisk 115 charges, asterisk. But it's one to be admired rather than one to be enthralled by, and I get the sense the United one was one, and I found it, believe it or not, quite endearing how proud Neville was on TV last night of having been part of this.
Yeah,
I did actually really enjoy it because they did this. They obviously did their combined 11s, but Neville at the start, his combined 11 was the United team from 1999, and he said, "Well, we've done it. You know, when these guys go and do their treble, then we'll talk about being added into this team." And maybe it was a bit, and maybe it was a gag, but
when I heard that,
I'm not sure that it was.
No, I'm not sure. When I did hear that, I did think, well, hang on, this slot's your idea. So, you know, if you're like, we didn't make you do this.
It just reminded me of Keane did a joint. Was it a joint United Liverpool 11? Carragher.
Yeah.
And it was just like Sadio Mane, and Keane was just like, well, Kanchelskis, you know? No, like not for turning at all.
The other thing that's kind of hard to get across from that decade, the 90s, so like it was the Holy Grail, obviously, for Ferguson, and the 90s were a slow and steady build up to it, and it was the ultimate culmination, because it was like, because at that stage I was too young to know about the ban, and I almost like, has an English team ever won in Europe? Because it just felt so impossible against these great Italian sides, and Dortmund won in 97, and it just seemed like, God, an English side not going to win in Europe. Whereas now it's like, well, we are the Super League, of course we're going to win in Europe. So
totally.
There's no sense of what an achievement. Whereas in 99 to win the European Cup felt like, what an achievement. Like Jonathan Wilson was on a while back and he was talking, and I remember the game as well. It was a few years prior to 99 when United played Porto in a quarter-final, and all the build-up was Porto, they're really good, and United beat them 4-0, and it was like, oh my God, United beat Porto 4-0. Well, nowadays, I mean, if you don't put like 10 on Leipzig, you're kind of had a bad day at the office.
Oh, well, I mean, look, the converse to all this, that if City don't win the Champions League in Guardiola's time, he'll be laughed out of town, you know. There'll be the old bowl throw. It will be, will make a comeback. So that has definitely dampened the whole thing. But it's a wider conversation as to the concentration of wealth and talent in the Premier League has stripped so much of the game bare. It's like, from an Irish point of view, it's kind of ruined our player development, which is another conversation for another day.
Yeah.
OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.